do I have?
A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
That's right, folks. From the mountains of Kentucky to the bayous of Louisiana, broadcasting online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator Adam Keller. Today, we have a worker from Mercedes and Hyundai on to talk to us about their campaign to organize their shops in Alabama. Folks in Huntsville are pushing a Gaza ceasefire resolution at the city council, and politicians in Montgomery are trying to hamstring unions while knowing nothing about them. All that and more on today's program. If you want to be part of the show today, we've got a phone number, and we're opening the line now. That number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also leave a voicemail throughout the week, and we might respond to it on the next program. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, you can find us anywhere you find anything online, particularly at our website, TVLR.fm. You can subscribe to our newsletters there. Last week in Southern Labor and Boss Watch, where we deliver to your inbox every single week what Southern workers and bosses are up to. It's a great newsletter, just an aggregate from some of the press releases from the Department of Labor and things like that. So it's a good little thing. If you want to become a sustaining donor to the program, or make a one-time donation, you can find that at our website, tvlr.fm/donate, or become a patron at patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. And if you're a member of a union, then you can reach out to us to get your local or international to sponsor the show. We could not do the program without without support of organized labor.
Yeah, shout out to all the local labor unions that have sponsored us, whether you're a newer sponsor or if you've been on board for years. We really appreciate you. Sorry, we're both going through sinus and allergies and cough and cold and all that good stuff these last few weeks. But let me add a disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in this program belong solely to their author and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. We welcome all of our listeners, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, Unclaimed Mysteries Internet Radio, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, WMMT, or through your favorite podcast app. We are proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network and encourage our listeners to check that out if you want to find more shows like us. And as most of you know, we are not media professionals, just some diehard unionists who believe that Alabama and the South's labor movement and working class deserve a bigger platform. We're hoping this project can make a difference on that front, and we cannot do it without you. So we want to thank everyone for tuning in, whether you're a loyal fan or a first-time listener. We appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Absolutely. And with that out of the way, let's get to what workers in the U.S. South and the American colonies were up to for the last 2 weeks, from April 12th to April 26. In new union campaigns, 4 workers at Jones Lang LaSalle in Miami, Florida, filed a petition to hold a union election with the International Union of Operating Engineers, IUOE, Local 30F. The employer filed a petition for a union election after a majority of the 5 workers at Spire, Alabama, in Wetumpka, Alabama, demonstrated support for unionization with the United Association of Plumbers, Pipe Fitters, and Steam Fitters, UA, Local 548. Workers like likely pushed by their employer, filed a petition to decertify the Communication Workers of America, CWA, Local 3603, as the union representing 62 workers at Transcontinental Matthews in Matthews, North Carolina. 54 security guards at Akima Global Services in Guaynabo, Puerto Rico, filed a petition to hold a union election with the Programa de Solidaridad, UTIER. The employer filed a petition to hold a union election after a majority of the 134 workers at Union Tank Car Company demonstrated support for unionization with the Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers Union, SMART. 50 workers at MNG 2005 in St. Louis, Missouri, filed a petition to hold a union election with the United Food and Commercial Workers, UFCW, Local 655. One worker at Keolis in Dania Beach, Florida, is seeking to be added to the already represented bargaining unit represented by Teamsters, Local 769. 85 workers at Polyethylene Containers in El Dorado, Arkansas, filed a petition to hold a union election with the Plastic Workers Union, Local 18. 90 workers at 10 Roads Express in Greensboro, North Carolina, filed a petition to hold a union election with the Teamsters, Local 391. 43 workers at Trap Rock and Granite Quarries in Ironton, Missouri, filed a petition to hold a union election with the Laborers International Union of North America, LIUNA, Local 829. 10 workers at Impresas Steward Cementerios in Bayaman, Puerto Rico, filed a petition to hold a union election with the Union de Trunquistas in de Puerto Rico, the Trunks Union, Local 901. The employer filed a petition to hold a union election after a majority of the 45 workers at Rose Brooks Center in Kansas City, Missouri, demonstrated support for unionization with the LIUNA, Local 955. The employer filed a petition to hold a union election after a majority of the 28 workers at Barnes & Noble in Austin, Texas, demonstrated support for unionization with UFCW Local 455. 39 security guards at Defense Contracting Activity in Durham, North Carolina, filed a petition to hold a union election with the RTP Security Guards Association, but the petition was withdrawn. Workers likely pushed by their employer filed a petition to decertify Workers United as the union representing 61 workers at Emporia Rehabilitation and Healthcare Center in Emporia, Virginia. 34 workers at Wydown Coffee in Washington, D.C. filed a petition to hold a union election with Workers United, but the petition was later withdrawn. 9 workers at Corson Fire and Security in Louisville, Kentucky, filed a petition to hold a union election with UA Local 669. 70 workers at Mikey Co. in Boynton Beach, Florida, filed a petition to hold a union election with the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees, IATSE. 22 workers at Sightline Media Group in Arlington, Virginia, filed a petition to hold a union election with the Washington Baltimore News Guild, CWA, Local 32035. In campaign updates, the union election at Mercedes in Alabama has been scheduled for May 13th to 17th. In election results, in a huge win, 4,326 workers at Volkswagen in Chattanooga, Tennessee, voted 2,628 to 985 in favor of unionization with the United Auto Workers. That's 73% in favor. In what is probably a first, U.S. President Joe Biden congratulated the workers within hours, and Tennessee Governor Bill Lee said the workers made a mistake. The International Association of Firefighters disclaimed interest in a decertification petition filed for 12 firefighters at Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, meaning the previously represented unit is decertified. 102 workers, undergraduate resident assistants at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., voted 79-3 in favor of unionization with the Office and Professional Employees International Union, OPEIU, Local 153. 16 workers at Starbucks in Springfield, Virginia, voted 14-0 in favor of unionization with Starbucks Workers United. 77 workers at Transdev Services in Houston, Texas, voted 48-6 in favor of unionization with Teamsters, Local 988. 8 workers workers at Wells Fargo in Apex, North Carolina, voted 6-2 in favor of unionization with Wells Fargo Workers United, CWA, as did 6 Wells Fargo workers in Cedar Hill, Texas. But 10 workers at Wells Fargo in Bellevue, Florida, voted 4-4 in an election to unionize with Wells Fargo Workers United, CWA, and ties go to the company. 6 workers at Second Chance Animal Rescue in Norman, Oklahoma, voted unanimously 6-0 in favor of unionization with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME. 96 workers at Flight Safety International in Savannah, Georgia, voted 14-69 against unionization with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, IAMAW. 8 workers at West Rock in Nashville, Tennessee, voted 4-4 in a decertification election with the Teamsters Local 327, and ties go to the company. 5 workers at Herzog Transit Services in Irving, Texas, voted 4-0 in favor of unionization with the American Train Dispatchers Association. 21 workers at Luke and Associates in Beaufort, South Carolina, voted 10-5 in favor of unionization with IUOE Local 465. 2 workers at the Cesar Chavez Foundation voted 0-2 against unionization with the Lone Star Labor Education. 8 workers at Riverside Theater in Vero Beach, Florida, voted 6-2 in favor of unionization with IATSE Local 500. 26 workers at Southeastern Paper Group in College Park, Georgia, voted 13-13 in a union election with Teamsters Local 528, and ties go to the company. 74 workers at San Antonio Express News in San Antonio, Texas, voted 31-36 against unionization with the Media Guild of the West. And finally, 22 workers at Ready Refresh in Davenport, Florida, voted 10-10 in a union election with the Teamsters Local 79, and ties go to the employer. In settlements, grievances, and unfair labor practices, when 80 drivers at United Natural Foods Incorporated, UNFI, in Florida decided to unionize with Teamsters Local 79, the company attempted to outsource those jobs to another non-union employer, J.B. Hunt. The NLRB last week found this to be an illegal move to kill the union campaign and refused to accept the plan to outsource jobs and ordered an election to be held on May the 4th and 5th. In strikes and bargaining updates, CWA workers at AT&T Southeast went on strike for the first time in 30 years back in 2019. The contract they secured after that strike expires this August, and CWA District 3 is laying the groundwork for another strike if necessary. The UAW reached a deal with GM Aramark, the sanitation department at GM, with raises of up to 43% over the 3-year deal, and a cut in the progression from several years to just 90 days. Members still have to ratify the deal. The UAW also announced a tentative agreement subject to membership ratification at Daimler Trucks, where 7,000 workers across the South work. In the agreement, the union announced a minimum of a 25% wage increase, profit sharing, and an end to tiers. Nurses across the South, organized with National Nurses United, are holding rallies as they negotiate contracts with the Hospital Corporation of America in El Paso, Texas, Asheville, North Carolina, and more. In politics and legislation, the North Alabama Building Trades Unions endorsed President Joe Biden for a second term. DeSantis signed a second law to reduce child labor regulations in Florida. This one allows more 16 and 17-year-olds on construction sites. DeSantis also signed into law a bill that would ban municipalities from having worker heat protection ordinances almost exactly 1 year after the heat death of a 24-year-old worker, Gabriel Infante, who died in his first week on the job in 2023. The EEOC released its final rule on the implementation of the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, which will add pregnancy as a condition for which employers must provide reasonable accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Civil Rights Act. The Mine Safety and Health Administration issued a final rule on silica exposure for coal miners, bringing the exposure limit in line with other professions. The Department of Labor finalized a rule expanding overtime protections for all workers who make $43,000 or less, which will increase to $58,000 on January the 1st. This will amount to more take-home pay for an estimated 3 million workers. That's going to be it for us. On the other side of the break, we're going to be talking to Jacob Ryan, a Mercedes worker and member of the organizing committee over at Mercedes in Tuscaloosa, and Quichelle Liggins, a Hyundai worker and member of the organizing committee, about the Volkswagen win in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and what it means for workers in Alabama. Stay tuned.
Benefit Architects has proudly supported union members and union-made products for over 35 years. If you are a federal employee and an AFGE member, you're eligible for hundreds of dollars in money-saving benefits, including group life insurance, dental insurance, and AFLAC insurance. Additionally, if you're a union member but don't work for the federal government, you can still qualify for several of these money-saving policies. So give Tate Hure a call at 256-215-6769 for details and to enroll. Again, that is Tate Hure at 256-215-6769.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and family members are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough even to keep their jobs. We can fix this. It's time for us to find a way to close the health care coverage gap so that people can remain at work. Let's make this a priority. Let's close this gap and cover Alabama. To learn more and how you can help, visit coveralabama.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Attention union members, membership organizations, podcasters, or anyone with a payment processing need. The future is here, and your organization needs to be prepared by working with Unionly. With Unionly, your union or organization can take payments on a mobile device, eliminating processing fees, giving you a better price than other payment processing methods, while at the same time supporting a union-friendly business with a specialized skill set to meet your needs. Your members will thank you when they pay their dues at their convenience without waiting in line to deposit cash or check. Start preparing for the future today by calling 206-595-8631 or visiting unionly.io.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you. Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law, the name with proven results.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth should go to labor, and you are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host Adam Keller. If you've got anything to add, you can give us a call. The phone number is 844-899-TVLR. You can also hang out with us in the YouTube chat, where we have Brandon, Benjo, IE Union Activist, Earth System, and more. Appreciate everybody tuning in. You can also hang out with us in the Facebook chat, where we have Antonia from the UAW. Appreciate you tuning in. And Brett from Birmingham, and Joe and Mel. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us today. Really looking forward to the conversation with Quichelle and Jacob. And the reason that we're talking to them, or one of the reasons, I mean, there's a lot to talk to them about, but but one of the big reasons that we wanted to talk to them was the huge Volkswagen win in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The win by the workers at Volkswagen, their huge union election. They won by 73%. The vote was over 2,600 in favor to less than 1,000 against. 73% of the workers who voted in favor of unionizing with the UAW. It was a huge win, landslide. I think people were expecting a win, but I don't think people were expecting it to be that big. And so this is a really big deal. And, you know, for folks who don't like, there are a lot of people, I hear a lot of folks on the radio, and a lot of folks just in, just in the media who do not understand why these workers are unionizing. They think that they've got it too good already. They think that these folks don't deserve it better. And just here's a couple of things from Luis's article about this in Labor Notes. The title of the article is Tennessee Volkswagen Workers Vote Union. Production workers at Volkswagen earn $23 an hour to start and top out at $32 an hour, which is compared with $43 an hour for production workers at Ford's Spring Hill assembly plant by the end of the contract in 2028. And that's in the same state, in the same industry, doing the same job, and you're making 25% less. So that's a huge reason to vote union. Additionally, the workers at Volkswagen and definitely at Mercedes, they've had to deal with two-tier wages. Workers across Tennessee, a recent poll conducted by the Conservative Beacon Center found that 44% of respondents statewide in Tennessee viewed the UAW favorably, while only 19% viewed it unfavorably. So there's a there's a lot of wins at the backs of the folks down in up in Volkswagen in Chattanooga, and a lot of reason for them to vote yes. And really, the biggest reason is just so that they have some autonomy. They don't have to be at the whim of their employers for for whatever the owners and executives at Volkswagen want to do. The workers now in Volkswagen have a say themselves. They don't have to depend on the bosses. So that's a huge win for folks there, and we're excited to watch them begin their contract negotiations. And so we wanted to talk to Jacob Ryan, a Mercedes worker in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Quichelle Liggins, a Hyundai worker in Montgomery, Alabama, both of them members of the organizing committee with the UAW here in the state. Jacob and Quichelle, thank you for taking the time to talk to us this morning. I really appreciate it.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So, I guess the first thing I want to ask y'all about is the win at Volkswagen. So, Quichelle, were you expecting them to win as big as they did in Chattanooga?
Of course not. Of course not. We were speechless. It was Jacob and David, I think, that had it real time, and it was basically over before it started. But we didn't realize, actually like they were winning. Like they blew it out of the park. So it was totally unexpected.
What were some of your first thoughts when you heard that that they were winning? And like you said, they were winning big. I mean, from the very beginning of the vote count, it was obvious that the workers were going to win. What were some of the things going through your mind at that time?
So we were in the middle of the conference, so we were kind of trying to get stationary. So we kind of like glanced at it and was like, okay, it's still early. It's like, 30 minutes or 45 minutes. So let's just get to, the stationary area where we're going to watch it like a watch party. So I'm like, I didn't really think, that much on it, even though I'm seeing the numbers actually like, as we're walking. But it's a lot more time. So I'm like, it's going to get a lot closer. But then as time started dwindling and the numbers kept going up, I was like, wow, this is that was monumental. Like that was, I can't even describe the feeling, but it was like, I don't know, it was just I don't know. It was just good. Just the feeling in the room was warm, and it was just like it was like New Year's, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Well, Jacob, what about you? What were you thinking when you were seeing the vote come in? Is Jacob on mute?
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Oh,
Jacob.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah.
So it was in the middle of our main session at Labor Notes, and me and David were sitting by each other, and we had the live vote count coming in, and we just kept looking at it, hitting each other, and we couldn't believe how much they were winning by. I mean, the whole vote count, they were up somewhere between 70 and 80%. And I mean, it was just an amazing night. And afterwards, we headed to the watch party to watch the end of it, and it was crazy. I mean, I thought they were going to win, but that 73%, that was insane to me.
Yeah. Well, and so now you've had a few days to be back down in Alabama, presumably talking to your coworkers. What have people been saying? How has this affected the campaign on the ground back home in Tuscaloosa?
Oh yeah. So a lot of people were talking about the Volkswagen vote. And I think it's just putting us well above the bar for our vote. And I mean, of course, we have the anti-union people and Mercedes coming out saying, oh, Volkswagen just voted yes, so let's just wait and see what happens with them and we'll vote no this time and wait and see what happens with them and we can come back and vote yes later if you want to. And we're not doing that. We're getting this through.
Yeah, so it doesn't seem like your coworkers are buying that. They don't want to. They don't want to wait around.
No. And then they said sit and wait, but last night we were able to watch Daimler trucks win their new contract, and I think that's going to be another push for us because they had a massive contract last night. Hasn't been ratified yet, but that's going to be another big push for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like there are very similar gains to what the Big Three were able to get, what workers at the Big Three were able to get in their contracts. So that's been a topic of conversation among the workers in Tuscaloosa as well, what they just won last night in the tentative agreement at Daimler Trucks.
Yes. So I know a lot of us have been watching that. I mean, Daimler Trucks and Mercedes used to be under the same umbrella. They split us up back about 2 years ago, kind of split the company, but there's still ties. So we've been watching the Daimler thing pretty close. And I mean, with that win last night, just about an hour before the strike deadline, and I mean, they gained so much in that contract if it is to be ratified. So I'm sure we're going to be hitting on that coming up on Monday.
So, Quichelle, what about you? You're the Hyundai campaign in Montgomery has been, the Mercedes campaign was maybe 3 or 4 weeks behind Volkswagen, and it seemed like
Hyundai is about 3 or 4 weeks behind Mercedes, as far as the progression. How has the Volkswagen win impacted the campaign at Hyundai? What have your coworkers been saying about this win in Chattanooga?
So, some are aware, some don't watch the news. So we're still getting the news out to people, but those that do know, they're really excited and they're asking us, well, what about Mercedes? Are they getting ready to vote? Or so they're excited, but then you have some that's saying, oh well, let's just wait to see what Mercedes does. And I'm like, Jacob, we don't have time to wait. We are brothers and sisters with Mercedes, but we have our own campaign. So if we wait, we may miss the momentum. Right now, we have a wave. We need to continue fighting the fight, and we all do it together instead of separate or one behind another. But it'll be impactful either way.
Right. And at Hyundai, the if Hyundai and I think Toyota in Missouri, I think both of y'all are kind of in very similar places in your campaign. And y'all will be the first non-German foreign automakers in the South. Hyundai and Toyota, or I think Toyota is Japanese, but I think is Hyundai South Korean or is Hyundai Japanese too?
It's Korean.
Okay, yeah. So, but non-German, Asian companies, and those companies, Hyundai and Toyota, have been, I think, even more historically anti-union than Mercedes and Volkswagen. I think in part because Mercedes and Volkswagen have this relationship with the unions in Germany, and the Toyota and Hyundai are really, really, really motivated to try to keep unions out. Have y'all faced more anti-union kind of harassment at Hyundai in Montgomery than maybe folks like Jacob and the folks in Volkswagen in Chattanooga have seen?
It feels like it has. We actually, I think when they did their 50% rally, we actually went up to Mercedes and we were discussing some of the things that were happening at Hyundai, which were the daily readings of how the UAW is corrupt, their constant flashing on the screen of how Sean Fain and the UAW bosses, they go on these lavish vacations, and how we don't need the union here. We have this Alabama Strong campaign that they're focusing on. We also have BCA, the Business Council of Alabama, who just maybe a mile from the plant on the strip home, there are 2 billboards, maybe 200 feet apart, talking against the union. We have anti-union signs. We have some of our management to throw away some of our paperwork. But we just continue to fight. Now our presence is becoming more and more known. We've been getting out more. We try to form a union before, and everybody got intimidated because they used to come around in the break areas and harass only the pro-union people. But this time around, we stood up for more than just we weren't pushovers. So we continue to document. We continue to flash our Know Your Rights cards. We reported, and so we're getting less and less, and also kind of a small sense of we wear red t-shirts on Wednesday, and we've had some management on the slide wearing red shirts or pink shirts, or kind of showing their support in the background. So, but yeah, it's been rough because, like I said, you do have that they don't speak to us, or like throwing away our paperwork. Like they really try to make it hard. Those signs that you come in, they have just people posted up, and I think the BCA is like really, really, really. They've gotten some new signs actually this week, where we had just no union, don't want one, don't need one. Now we have them sponsored by the BCA, and they've been posted along the road of the plant just this week.
When people are talking about this anti-campaign, particularly the one that is put on by the BCA, do people
how do people react to that? Because, in my mind, when I see, the organized, the BCA is literally a union of employers, right? That's what it is. They're coming together. They're acting, in concert, collectively for their collective interests as employers. And so when I see that, right, I say, for one, we have we have conflicting interests as classes, right? You're in the ownership class. You take money from the profits that I create by giving me less money, and I make money by keeping more of the value that I create. So, there's like a real fundamental conflict there, but also there's the real hypocrisy of all of these companies, including Hyundai and Mercedes. I'm pretty sure they're part of the business council, coming together and acting collectively in their collective interests. To say that we should not come together and act in our collective interests. What do people say about that? Quichelle, I was pointing the question at you.
Okay. So a lot of people don't understand what the BCA really stands for. And so we have to get that message across. We've been working through that with the BOC. And like you said, they actually pay dues, and it's set up just like a union. It's actually, business corporations coming together. So that's one of the things that we actually have to inform our workers of. So basically what they say, just for seeing the signs, they're saying the plant's going to close, that they're going to move and go to Mexico, that, we can't do, we're going to get fired if we talk about it, or, this is the way and the only way. I see a group leader or a manager that's constantly on the Alabama Strong page, while I work alongside of him. I don't think he noticed, but he, they're just intimidated. Like, some people are really just intimidated. In the area that I work in, it's kind of hard to get out. So we just have to keep trying to deliver the message through one another from shift to shift to try to get it across the plant.
Right. Jacob, what about at Mercedes? How are people reacting to this, concerted campaign from the business council and from all of these politicians? Just in the last week, we've had 2 op-eds from politicians, from the Speaker of the House in the state of Alabama. How are folks reacting to this?
Most of the things from the politicians, people aren't really listening to it at all. Most people at Mercedes don't particularly care for Governor Kay Ivey anyway. So, when they come out and say all this, a lot of times it actually drives our support. And like Kay Ivey has came out and said about a month ago that the UAW coming in is a out-of-state special interest group coming to attack Alabama economic model. And thing is, it's not out of a state. Our whole campaign has been worker-led. When we first started our campaign, we went and talked to UAW. We told them we wanted to run the campaign through us, and they've allowed us to do that. This has all been the workers in the plant. All the UAW has done this far is give us material support in printing our flyers and sending in shirts and hats. Everything about our campaign has been about us, by us. And Governor Kay Ivey hasn't came and talked to us. She doesn't know what's going on. She's just talking on things she doesn't know about.
Right.
So, all the political stuff, it's just it's not really being seen. And when it is, it's going in our favor. We see bumps in support.
Right. I think that the out-of-state
smear from, the political class and the business class on the UAW in this situation is, it's something that they've been saying, literally since Reconstruction and slavery. This is something that they've always been saying is, outside agitators are trying to attack the South's economic model. This has been something, they can't update their talking points for anything. But in this situation in particular, it is so funny because even if you want to say the UAW is headquartered in Detroit, well, where is Mercedes headquartered? You probably couldn't even say the name of the city that it's headquartered, somewhere wherever it is in Germany, right? And the same thing with Hyundai and Toyota. These are not Alabama companies. These are not even American companies. These are foreign, out of country interests. And so, the idea that she's defending, foreign interests against the out of state interest of the UAW is just, it's been, particularly ironic, I think, in this situation. The UAW came out with a poll recently showing that a majority of Alabamians actually have a favorable opinion of the UAW, including a majority of Republicans, with only 20% of Alabamians having a negative view of the UAW. Jacob, is this something that you've been seeing in support from the community as, people from outside of the plant as you interface with them? Is that something that you've been able to see just as the campaign progresses, that there's a lot of support out there in the community for y'all?
I have. So I am on one of our ads that's being played on Facebook and other social media. And once that ad came out, I've been being stopped in public, and when I'm picking my kids up from daycare, other parents, and they're talking to me. They're like, "Oh, I've seen you," and they're giving their support. And I think the community is really supporting us. And if we win, this will be a win for the local communities. Once we win and we're able to win a good contract, that puts more money into the community through the employees spending more money locally. And I think the community knows that, and it's just gonna bring everyone up along with us.
Right. Absolutely. Quichelle, what about you? Have you been seeing, that support play out as your campaign progresses?
Well, yes. I really saw it with the labor notes, but I went to the State House a couple of weeks ago. I think you and Adam, on two separate occasions, I saw you guys at the State House. But to just see that and to get that feel to know what a union actually is about. The community has always been in full support, but because 80% of the time we're in the plant and we have in our ear management, we have to sit through meetings that we don't want to and hear information that we don't want to, whether we want to or not. We don't have a choice. They're constantly playing it like a broken record on the TV screens and also on the radios now and the billboards. That's all that some people see. So since they hear and see that more, they kind of flock to that. But the community has always been in support of us, and I'm seeing it more and more as I do more and more union work. Like I said, the labor notes was a great way to network and actually feel that, because when I was in those rooms, I actually got to talk to people who actually already thought like me. I didn't have to convince them of what I'm trying to do because they already knew the struggle and they already felt what I felt. So it was genuine love and solidarity across the board, even at the State House. And that's what's important about unions, is that when we come together, regardless of if it's your fight or my fight or Jacob's fight, everybody's fighting for that cause. They're just there to help support one another. And so the more and more people see that, I think the more and more they'll be less reluctant to join in and learn more, because the company only focuses on dues and what you can't get, or they don't have to, bargain in good faith. But it's really important to do your work about what unions really are.
Right.
Yeah, I couldn't echo that enough, and I just want to lift that up, that I think seeing is believing, right? And when you see folks come together for that common cause, and when you see those wins start to come out of that, when people stick together and you all benefit from it, yeah, people get on board. People want to be part of something bigger than themselves. But yeah, to your point, it's just so much propaganda that's being unleashed on the population of Alabama. I think folks who are listening from outside of Alabama maybe just can't really appreciate how much propaganda is being dumped out there, especially in Montgomery, especially in Tuscaloosa. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And so I know it's a lot more work on y'all's part as worker organizers, but I know that, the truth will set us free.
There you go. So you mentioned labor notes, and that's a great segue. We want to talk to you about labor notes. Before we move on to that topic, though, just to remind folks of the reason that y'all are fighting. It's not, it's not ethereal or some, kind of theoretical reason. You have real material interests in this campaign and in winning this campaign. And Quichelle, you have a particularly powerful story about, how management tried to punish you for taking leave to, be with your family. Can you tell folks that story and the story that you told at Labor Notes on a panel with me? That really activated you and made you want to really devote a significant amount of time to this campaign?
Yes. So I'm a single mother, and both of my sons play sports. So my younger son it was the playoffs. So I had scheduled a half a day of vacation time so that I could attend the playoff game. And it was already approved. So when it was come close to time to leave, there was someone walked by and said, okay, I'm going to relieve you. But they never came. So it came time for me to leave. I left. I clocked out. Went to my son's game. The next day, I got a call from a coworker that told me that, hey, when you get back, you're going to be written up for job insubordination. They said that you left the line without notifying anybody. So when I got back, sure enough, on that Monday, I was sitting before team relations and the management. Team relations is the mediation between the management and the worker. And I was told that I left the line too soon and that I needed to understand that the job is more important than my family, and that, that I would be docked for insubordination. But needless to say, I did not. But that's what resonated more to me, because the reason why I even go to work is to support my family. Right. And so I work to live. I don't live to work. And so for you to tell me that I need to concentrate on work more than I do my family, and I had a documented excuse time off, that was when I knew that things had certainly went awry and that I had to do something more than just come to work every day. So it became a personal interest of mine to make something change, to get something done.
And Jacob, at Mercedes, one of the things that you've told us before, and I don't think you've told it on our program, but I've interviewed you for other programs before, and you've told this about how they implemented two-tier in 2020, even as they were making huge profits. Can you just talk to us about that? Remind us what two-tier is and the situation at Mercedes when it was implemented. Talk to us about that.
All right. So back in 2020, they implemented two-tier pay systems. And our normal top out for the tier 1 employees was at that time around $31. And the two-tier system came in, and anyone hired after January 2020 topped out. At the beginning it was like $26.50, then it eventually moved up to $27.50, and they were never going to be equal to the tier 1 employees. They were never going to catch up to them. We have roundtable meetings at our plant where we get to sit down with management and ask questions. And one of the questions asked just about a year ago was, will Tier 2 ever catch up to Tier 1? Or will they ever abolish Tier 2 pay? And their answer, and we have it on paper, because after these meetings, they print out all the questions and answers and post them in the team rooms. On paper, they say that Tier 2 is not planned to ever go away, and they will not catch up to Tier 1. And when we started our campaign, right after we announced we were at 30% support, within 2 months, our campaign has moved very fast, much faster than any of us have expected. That 30% so fast caught Mercedes off guard, and so they threw out a bunch of stuff to us to try to get the union drive to die down, and we're able to get them to cancel Tier 2. And they tried to claim, oh, this is what we always were going to do. But we have it on paper where you say you're not going to do it.
Right.
So,
right.
So
what you're telling us, Jacob, is that you don't want to just have to trust the company. You want something that's actually
Correct.
in writing, that you can actually hold them accountable to.
Yes, we want a contract that will force them to do what they have agreed on, because right now they can change anything at any moment, and we've seen them do it.
And I think that's just amazing that they did that in 2020 as they were making huge profits. There was not any, business reason to implement two-tier. They just wanted to make more money. And I think that's really, kind of what you get with corporate America. And so let's talk about labor notes then. Quichelle, you mentioned labor notes. Jacob, you were at labor notes as well. What was, I guess first, Jacob, what were you expecting when you were, planning to go to labor notes? Did you have kind of an idea of what it was going to be, or what were you expecting? And then what was it like being there? What did you do?
Well, I had no idea what to expect. I've never been to any kind of conference, much less a labor conference with other union organizers and union members. So when I got there that Friday, and I went to my first class, it was a panel class on inoculation. And after that class, I knew that the whole weekend was going to be amazing for me. Like the things I was able to learn in there and all the other panels and classes I went to, just all that information and the things I was able to learn about what to be expecting in the future and this fight up to the vote, and what to expect on the fight for a contract. And even after that, once a contract signed, and then the networking there, that was a little overwhelming. There's so many people's names and numbers I have, and I had to start creating notes in their contacts in my phone so I can remember who everyone is and what organization they're from. But I probably added over 50, 60 names and numbers in my phone just in those 3 days. But that whole experience was amazing, and I definitely would like to go back in 2 years when they have it again.
Do you have a favorite panel or favorite thing about labor notes?
Well, like I said, that first class, inoculation, learning all about that, because I didn't even know what the term inoculation meant as far as union organizing.
Right.
And so inoculation is just where we have to get out and spread the word to our coworkers about what the company is going to try to do, and let them know how the company is going to try to attack us, so we can be prepared for those attacks and know how to respond to them. And really, that was a class that was amazing for me. And we got some great ideas, because I'm sure there's going to be another all-team meeting, and I won't say it now because it hasn't happened yet, but we have some ideas that we're going to work on doing for the all-team meeting that we expect that's going to be coming up, probably a few days before our vote starts. But that inoculation class really stuck with me.
That's exciting. That's exciting. Something really practical and timely for you. That's great to hear.
Quichelle, what about you? What were you expecting when you knew that you were going to be heading up there, and what was your experience like?
So I kind of try to give myself an idea of what Labor Notes was all about by just going on the page and, just looking at it. And so I could see that it was big, but I guess I still didn't account for how big it really was. And so I came in on that Thursday because I had a panel early that Friday. And, it was still kind of quiet, but, there were people coming in. So that Friday I got up early to try to prepare. I ate breakfast at maybe 8. I spoke on a panel and the world just came crashing down. Like, it was like confetti. Like, all of people were more excited for me. I think the nerve that I thought I was nervous, like, people were cheering for me harder than I was just speaking, from my heart. And so people were coming up, can I get a selfie? Do you have the contact information? How can I? And I'm, it's like Jacob said, I was overwhelmed, but I was also excited that I said something and I spoke to so many people that, this is the same conversation I have daily with my coworkers, and it gets nowhere. But to see a room full of people who are fully engaged and to actually come lining up to actually ask questions, get my information, to take photos, to give their insight, to tell me how inspiring my story is, and to keep fighting no matter what. That was exhilarating. Like you said, the networking, the atmosphere, it was unmatched. Labor Notes was like, I was exhausted. So, at 8 o'clock, I said that because I wanted to let you know the next time I got a break was 5 o'clock that evening, and I had to cut off interviews. I was interviewed by the Washington Post. There were so many different, there were people doing labor studies. I just had to say, hey, I respectfully decline. I just really cannot go any further. But if you can, just meet me in the morning at my next panel. So I wasn't able to attend many workshops because I was actually speaking on the panels. But just to read all of the workshops, and just to network with the people, and people, like, as I engaged or walked around, people were like, "Oh, you did so good. You did so good." They were steady coming up, steady pumping up that big ego I already had. And, I was already walking around with my shoulders held high because I felt like I was important. Like, it was just a kind of a breakthrough that I, wanted with my workers. It has not resonated yet. And so it filled me up so much, and it just made me so eager to hurry up and get back. But I wanted to stay focused on what was going on at Labor Notes because I didn't want to miss anything. I wanted to make sure that I networked and I touched every room, and to, give my full potential so that I could give everything back to my workers when I made it back home.
Well, Quichelle and Jacob, really appreciate y'all taking the time. Y'all are definitely like celebrities, I think, in the labor world. What y'all are doing down here in Alabama, it's a big deal. Y'all are making history, so appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Glad I got to hang out with y'all for a little bit at Labor Notes. It was great. Anything else that y'all want to leave folks with before we let you go?
I just want to personally thank both you, Jacob and Adam, just for being a listening ear and just for having this podcast to actually have us come on. That has actually helped. I was actually listening to the podcast before I actually, as building up to labor notes. So I was, every time I would see you guys are celebrities to me. So to see you guys at the State House and then to get invited onto a panel and then now your podcast, that was definitely a thrilling moment for me. Continue to do what you guys do, and just get the word out. And if any way that you can help or we can help, just by speaking, our stories, I'm more than willing. I had a personal conversation with Adam and Jacob, you as well. Whatever I can do to help or get whatever needs to be done or to help push your podcast, I'm more than willing. And just thank you for that opportunity. And you guys keep up the great work that you do.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Quichelle. We really appreciate both of y'all. As Jacob said, you're making history. You are paving the way for workers across this state to make positive change, and we can do it. You're doing it right now, so we appreciate y'all, and holler at us anytime.
All right. Thanks again, y'all. That was Jacob Ryan, organizing committee member and worker at Mercedes in Tuscaloosa, and Quichelle Liggins, organizing committee member and worker at Hyundai in Montgomery. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back with Moni from the North Alabama DSA. They are pushing a ceasefire resolution at the Huntsville City Council. They spoke there were several speakers, I think a dozen maybe, at the last city council meeting speaking in favor of a ceasefire resolution. We're going to talk to her about that. Stay tuned, folks. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and neighbors are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough to keep their jobs. We need to fix this. Let's close the health care coverage gap. To learn more, visit coveralabama.org.
Support for this program also comes from the Iron Workers, Local 477. So if you are looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, they tell me that if you need to know what those mean, then you will. Or if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, short or long term, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer, and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Iron Workers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs, from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Iron Workers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334 or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
The Laborers International Union of North America, Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact Donna at their training center to start the process. That phone number is 256-415-7452. Again, that phone number is 256-415-7452. No experience is needed. Free training is offered, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is their mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you. Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law. The name with proven results.
Come on, you poor workers, good news, I'll tell how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Alabama's only union talk radio show. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host Adam Keller. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Really enjoyed that conversation with Jacob and Quichelle. We have calling in now somebody from the Valley, or somebody from the North Alabama DSA to talk about the ceasefire resolution that they are pushing at the Huntsville City Council. Moni, is that you?
That's me. Hi, how are you guys?
Hi, I'm good. Really appreciate you taking the time to call in. We've been talking about the push for a ceasefire in Gaza for a long time now. It is now a mainstream position. Calling for a ceasefire in Gaza is not some, fringe, super radical left-wing position. This is the position, actually, of organized labor. Unions representing the vast majority of union members in this country have now called for a ceasefire, including the AFL-CIO, which is the largest federation of unions in the country. And so this is, you are well in line with the mainstream of the organized working class in this country. So I appreciate you supporting, you pushing this here in Huntsville. And, when people just thinking about pushing for a ceasefire resolution at a city council. Well, that's not, obviously Israel isn't going to say, oh, well, Huntsville called for a ceasefire, right? But now we're going to stop. Obviously, we don't think that's going to happen. But the reason that you're pushing for this, I think, is because the city of Huntsville proactively put itself out there on this issue. This is not, just coming out of nowhere and you're asking the city of Huntsville to take a stance in foreign affairs where it has never done so before. After the 7th of October, the city of Huntsville came out with a resolution in support of Israel, and not wrongly expressing, concern and sadness over the Israeli civilians who were killed, but completely leaving out the plight of the Palestinians and the Palestinians who are now being killed, innocent Palestinians. Nobody really is disputing that at this point. So that's a big reason that y'all are targeting the city of Huntsville for this resolution now, right?
Yeah, that is one of the big reasons. And I don't have their resolution in front of me, but there was also wording about that. The incident on October 7th was, what word did they use? Basically, it came out of nowhere. I mean, This all started on October 7th, the narrative the other side is trying to push. So otherwise, any loss of life is devastating, and it's okay to speak against that, but you need to do it honestly and truthfully. And also Huntsville, the mayor signed on to that. Obviously, the city council signed on to that. And a lot of money comes out of Huntsville that is funding the war and these weapons. And so they made it a Huntsville issue by passing that initial resolution. And so if they can, rightfully or wrongfully, if they can come out and speak about the tragic loss of 1,000 human lives, then why aren't you able to do that for now over 40,000 lives and another, millions at risk of famine or death, destruction, all those things?
Exactly. Like I said, even aside from the ceasefire, if you're going to say, in this instance, it's sad, and it is, that there were Israeli civilians and children in Israel who were killed, it is, numerically and definitionally, 30 times more sad it has to be that many children in Palestine have been killed. And there's been no indication so far that the city council is even going to be going as far as just expressing sadness and concern with the innocent Palestinian children that are being killed in this assault and massacre in Gaza. So can you tell us, the full kind of, you don't have to read the resolution in full, but what are the main things in the resolution that you are trying to get the city of Huntsville to adopt, and talk to us about, the people that came out and spoke in support of it on Thursday?
Right. And so I think, I don't have the exact figures, but I think there's at least 100 other cities across the nation that have also passed ceasefire resolutions or resolutions in support of the Palestinian people. There have been universities, student groups, labor unions. So a lot of people who we might say don't necessarily have the power to affect change are speaking up, because I think we're at that point in history where if you're not using your platform, even if that platform only reaches 2 people, then you might be called complicit with this genocide and what's happening. But I think the main wording of the resolution is a standard format. It's standing against the genocide, calling for a ceasefire, and asking that the city of Huntsville stand with humanity and loss of life, regardless of one's ethnicity or nationality. It also calls out anti-Semitism and anti-Islamophobia. It calls out anti-Palestinian hate and anti-Jewish hate. One thing, I read an article this morning, I glanced over it briefly, and a couple things that were very bothersome is that they use the word anti-Semitism again, which is just lazy reporting. It's no one. There's always a couple idiots at every protest, and the cameras always point to them. But you won't go to these college campuses, or you won't go to any of these movements or protests. No one is calling for anti-Semitism or Jewish hate. Historically, Jewish people are standing up in record numbers. Historians, academics, students, Jewish Voices for Peace. I don't have the figures, but it's thousands and thousands. I went to a big rally in Washington, D.C., and there was a huge number of rabbis and, the traditional, and I believe it might have been their Sabbath, and so they couldn't participate, but they were there. They were silently there with their posters and their children. And so don't call us, don't say anti-Semitism, because the people speaking at these rallies in every shape and form, they're not all Muslim. They're people of every faith or no faith. They're of every color, and they're all just, have that one, just kind of black and white message of, killing people, killing innocent civilians is not okay. And especially in these numbers, it's just, the worst humanitarian crisis of modern era, most loss of journalists, healthcare professionals. We're just breaking every statistic known in modern history.
Yeah, it's really concerning, and you're right to point out the idea that the thrust of these protests on college campuses is anti-Semitic is obviously absurd. I think it was at Columbia, supposedly the epicenter of the anti-Semitic hate. There was a Passover Seder, led by Jewish people. And there was another video that was going around on Twitter of this, pro-Israel person who was, using her Jewish identity to, cover her support for what's going on in Israel. And she had this shirt on that said Jew and Israel on the back. And she was like, dox me or whatever. And there were people right behind her with banners, Jews for Palestine or whatever. Like obviously, Jewish people are safe here. It's just, it's silly to suggest otherwise. And folks like her, really, prove the point that this is not an issue, and there was nobody that was attacking her despite her trying to make that happen. It's just absolutely absurd, and Really appreciate the work that y'all are doing to try to get the city of Huntsville to come out now on this issue that they have staked a position on and come out in favor of humanity and against the massacre that's happening in Gaza. So
yes, there was even one in the article I read this morning. They didn't. Kind of strangely, they didn't name the person who said this, but one of the council people or the mayor, I'm not sure, said that maybe we were 15 approximately people who spoke in different capacities. There was a physician, a healthcare professional, we had a professor, myself, a nurse practitioner, we had students, we had all, the broad spectrum of speakers. And they said that none of us mentioned the hostages, the 100 to 200 hostages in Israel. So to whoever you are, you should use your name and you should talk to us. Our heart pains for those 100 to 200, hostages, because they are humans too. They have families, they have loved ones. I would say to you that there was over 5,000 hostages, Palestinian hostages, before October 7th. And that number has gone up to over 9,000, maybe 10,000. And so when we talk about when our side, and when I say our side, I'm saying, I'm speaking for Muslims, Jews, Christians, atheists, anyone with any morality or, whatever the right word is, it is wrong. Whether it's 100, it's wrong if it's 10,000, and it's irrespective of anything else. Everything else doesn't matter. Your color doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. So I would like to know who that person was and why didn't they dialogue with us that evening?
Yeah, well, I mean, using the hostages, to attack ceasefire people is just, frankly, one of the more disgusting pieces of propaganda that people are using now, because clearly the thing that is, you can either be, concerned about the safety of the hostages, or you can be in favor of the massacre in Gaza. You cannot be concerned with both, because clearly the safest thing for the hostages would be a ceasefire. I mean, the idea that the pro-war people are coming to, especially at this point when this is so clear, and talking about the hostages is frankly gross in my view. What have you seen any reaction from the city councilors? What has the reaction from the councilors been to this point?
So far, one of our organizers was in contact with one of the city council people, and we presented the resolution, and we had hopes that maybe they would, put it on the agenda. That did not happen, so we will follow up with that council person. And now every single council person and the mayor has a copy of that resolution, so we'll follow up with all of them. As far as I know, we don't have any movement or any traction, but there's been very, blue and democratic states where it's taken, over 6 months of just a genocide. There's no other word, just pure terror and horror for them to finally come around. I think it's going to take, the struggle is going to be harder here in Red, Alabama. But if you're on the wrong side, you're going to be written that way. Your children, your grandchildren, they're all going to read about you in that light of, being on the wrong side of history.
Moni, North Alabama DSA, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to wrap up with Boss Watch. Boss Watch is the mirror to last week in Southern Labor, where we take a look at what workers were up to. We also take a look at what bosses were up to. We pull some press releases from the Department of Labor, from OSHA, places like that. We're going to start in Florida, where federal workplace safety investigators have determined that a Tampa area construction contractor could have prevented a 37-year-old aerial lift operator from suffering fatal injuries after being struck by a boom as a crane tipped over during work on an Orlando highway ramp in October 2023.
2023. Investigators with the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration found the incident occurred while employees of Concrete Impressions of Florida Incorporated in Tampa and Adcock Cranes Incorporated in Plant City installed precast concrete sound barrier panels on the southbound SR 417 ramp. OSHA determined that the Concrete Impressions operator was working in an aerial lift as a 10,700-pound panel was being lifted into place by an Adcock Cranes employee. During the process, an outrigger gave way and tipped the 110 Liber crane toward a slope, which struck the employee on a lift in the crane's swing radius. OSHA cited Adcock Cranes with one serious violation for not ensuring the ground conditions were adequate to support the crane while lifting sound barrier panels. The agency proposed $16,000 in penalties for Adcock Cranes. The agency also cited Concrete Impressions of Florida with one serious violation for allowing workers to take apart and use extension ladders to reach sound barrier panels, and one other than serious violation for the contractor not documenting the required 12-month record of the inspections of a chain used to lift sound barrier panels. The agency has proposed about $5,000 in penalties for that employer. Construction safety standards that prevent workplace incidents involving mobile, overhead, and rail-mounted cranes are industry standards. They were enacted following a high rate of injuries and fatalities related to crane operations in the construction industry, and yet the department's Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that 12 crane operators died in 2022. Staying in Florida, making the trip from Mexico to South Florida, a 26-year-old man arrived in September 2023, ready to start a new job on a sugar cane farm in Belle Glade. 4 days later, he suffered fatal heat-related injuries while working in an open field as the heat index reached 97 degrees. An investigation by the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration found that McNeil Labor Management Incorporated of Belle Glade found the farm labor contractor who hired the young man under the federal H-2A program for temporary or seasonal non-immigrant workers could have prevented his death by implementing safety rules to protect workers from heat-related hazards. These include using an effective plan to help workers acclimate to weather conditions. OSHA investigators learned that the worker, sitting atop stacks of sugarcane on a trailer as he tossed them onto the ground for planting, began experiencing symptoms consistent with heat-related illness and complained of not feeling well. Shortly after, he collapsed. The field in which he worked is about an hour west of West Palm Beach, 20 minutes from the closest road, and 22 miles from the hospital to which he was transported and where he later died, stricken by a heat stroke. As average temperatures rise across the U.S., heat illness is a growing safety and health concern for workers both indoors and outdoors. The Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that environmental heat exposure claimed the lives of 36 workers in 2021 and 56 in 2020. After its investigation, OSHA cited McNeil Labor with one serious violation for exposing workers to hazards associated with high ambient heat while working in direct sunlight. Federal investigators also found that the employer did not report the worker's hospitalization or eventual death, both of which the law requires to be reported. McNeil Labor Management faces about $27,000 in proposed penalties, an amount set by federal statute. The company is contesting the findings before the Independent Occupational Safety and Health Review Commission. In Alabama, Greg Orr Auto Collection Incorporated, a group of car dealerships, has agreed to pay about $325,000 and provide other relief to settle a U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission lawsuit, alleging that the Texarkana, Texas-based company fired a senior sales executive to avoid medical costs related to his cancer diagnosis. According to the lawsuit, Greg Orr Auto fired the 65-year-old employee in February 2020 without prior warning and informed him that his health insurance coverage would end effective immediately. The EEOC contended this came shortly after the worker received billing statements for a costly surgery to treat a serious cancer. The suit alleged that Greg Orr Auto knew the company would be exposed to the employee's ongoing healthcare expenses under its self-insured employee healthcare plan and therefore replaced him with a significantly younger worker in his mid-30s.
Such conduct violates the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, which prohibits employers from discriminating based on disability or age. The EEOC filed suit and after first attempting to reach a pre-litigation settlement. As part of the consent decree settling the case, Greg Orr Auto agreed to update its anti-discrimination policies and to provide its upper management with training on disability and age discrimination. In Virginia, the U.S. Department of Labor has obtained a consent judgment in federal court that orders a Virginia concrete contractor to pay $1.2 million in stolen wages, damages, and penalties after its investigation found the employer misclassified 29 workers as independent contractors and failed to pay proper overtime to its employees. The action in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia in Alexandria follows an investigation by the department's Wage and Hour Division of Village Concrete Incorporated, a Manassas employer that allegedly misclassified the affected employees as independent contractors. By doing so, the employer failed to pay required overtime rates for hourly, day rate, and salaried workers. The division also found the company allegedly falsified records to make it appear that they had paid workers overtime, wrongly categorized salaried employees as exempt from overtime, and denied employees pay for distances traveled related to work. In addition, Village Concrete failed to keep accurate records of the hours employees worked and compensation the company paid them. The consent judgment requires the employer to pay 81 employees $564,000 in back wages and an equal amount in liquidated damages. It also bars Village Concrete from future Fair Labor Standards Act violations and affirms civil money penalties of $67,000 the department assessed for the employer's willful violations. Several dishonorable mentions this week. Parodies Incorporated, a mobile home transportation company in Maxwell, Texas, operating as Superior Service, misclassified 32 laborers and drivers as independent contractors when, in fact, the division determined they are employees. Investigator found the company violated federal law by failing to pay the required time and a half its employees' hourly wages for hours over 40 per work week. And by not keeping federally required records. The Wage and Hour Division of the Department of Labor recovered $84,000 in stolen wages. A contractor with a history of failing to protect employees from working in trenches from potentially deadly harm, Giant Construction Corporation in Tainan, Guam, faces penalties of more than $1 million after federal investigators found employees working in trenches deeper than 5 feet without required safety equipment. This is the 6th OSHA inspection of the company, since 2014, and it has been cited multiple times related to trench safety. An investigation by the U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division determined that Debut Mechanical Incorporated, a federal subcontractor on the Paxton Apartments construction project in the District of Columbia, misclassified 9 sheet metal workers and insulators as laborers. By doing so, the employer did not pay them the proper prevailing wages and fringe benefits in violation of the Davis-Bacon and related acts. The division also determined that Debut had incomplete payroll records, submitted falsified payrolls, and failed to provide required records, all violations of the Fair Labor Standards Act. The division recovered $20,000 in back wages and $13,000 in fringe benefits for 9 employees. A series of U.S. Department of Labor investigations at 7 Freddy's Frozen Custard and Steak Burgers franchise locations in Alabama has found the operator employed 149 children under the age of 16 to work longer and later than legally permitted by federal child labor provisions and tasked a 15-year-old child with illegally operating a manual deep fryer. The department assessed the employer with $119,000 in civil money penalties. Adam, you had a few plugs to wrap us up.
Yeah. I just wanted to remind folks to go to Labor Notes. If you missed the Labor Notes conference, you can find some of those sessions on their YouTube channel. I recommend you check that out, and as well as labornotes.org/events for some of the online trainings that they have coming up. I recommend folks Google Save Our Libraries Alabama. and read Freely Alabama and get involved there with some of the defense of our public libraries. A reminder that the Southern Workers Assembly has their Southern Workers School May 17th through 19th in Charlotte. More Perfect Union. We're big fans of More Perfect Union on this show. They're doing a lot of cool stuff down here in Alabama, reporting on the Mercedes campaign. So they will actually be flying around a pro-union message this weekend around the skies of Birmingham, which is really neat. And next Saturday, May 4th, they have a party to celebrate the working class, support auto workers with free barbecue, ice cream, bouncy house, free merch, and more. Saturday, May 4th, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central at Avondale Brewing Company in Birmingham. So that sounds like a great event, great time. Hopefully we'll be making it out there.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So with that, we're going to be heading into overtime here soon. We're going to be talking to Kristen Edmiston, a member of the Evergreen Education Association, about her Labor Notes workshop, Building Democracy in Contract Campaigns. Going to be really exciting. We're also going to be talking about our Labor Notes reflections, breaking down some of the news of Daimler, looking at some of the numbers from the AFL-CIO's Death on the Job report, debunking right-to-work stuff, taking a look at some of the anti-UAW op-eds that have been circling around in Alabama media. Lots of stuff lined up for overtime.
It's a busy day today. We were out last week, so we got a lot to catch up on.
A lot to catch up on. If you want to call in, 844-899-8857. We are going to have time for some calls, especially if you want to hit us up right at the beginning of overtime. That'd be a great time to call in, 844-899-8857. But with that, we're going to go ahead and head into overtime. Don't go anywhere. And if you're not going to be following us on YouTube, Facebook, or listening to us later on WMMT, appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next week. All right, folks, we're off to... that ends the first half of the show. Appreciate y'all staying tuned. We're going to take a break really quick and be right back with the second half of the show. Don't go anywhere.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell. Which side are you on?
Welcome back. You are still listening to the Valley Labor Report, Alabama's only union talk radio show and the union radio program in the South. Folks, we've got over 30 people watching us on YouTube and yet only 24 likes. What is going on with that? If you haven't liked the stream, do so. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And Mel asks in the Facebook chat, can we have an update on SB 231? That's what we were heading to right now. Adam, talk to us about what's been going on lately in the Alabama legislature.
Sure thing. So, long story short, it's not good. It's bad. And as we mentioned, Jacob and I have been at Labor Notes in Chicago, so we were out of the state for a few days, been trying to catch up on some of the legislation that has passed in the last couple weeks. It's not good. 231 is the bill that we were really focused on, SB 231. This bill would strip state incentives from companies if they voluntarily recognize a union. Any sort of cooperation with the union, such as handing over, a list of employees, anything like that, would be banned by this bill. Of course, this is a, kick sand in our eyes kind of a moment. Voluntary recognition is not the main way that folks gain unions. Most folks have to go to a secret ballot election run by the National Labor Relations Board because most companies are not nice, and most companies do not do voluntary recognition. However, sometimes some companies make those decisions to do so for various reasons. Sometimes, it's, a progressive organization that maybe is trying to live its values, or in some cases, they have made a calculated strategic decision to have peace with the union and to work with the union. And so we've seen high-profile cases of voluntary recognition. The minor league baseball players, for example, who, by the way, there are multiple minor league baseball teams here in the state of Alabama, all of which have received economic development incentives. There's also, the CWA has a neutrality agreement with Microsoft, for example. In Huntsville being a high-tech city, Microsoft could be an employer that, Huntsville might want to recruit. But unfortunately, SB 231 did pass the House. It had already passed the Senate. For those of you who've been following this, Quichelle brought it up earlier in her interview that we, rallied at the State House earlier in April, April 2nd, April 3rd. We were down there. We packed the public hearing, the first public hearing that was held in the Senate side. And they pulled some shenanigans. They limited our speakers, right? They brought in a corporate lobbyist to help them out. It was a lot of nonsense uttered between the lobbyist and the legislators. And they didn't like the fact that we packed the House. They didn't like the wide opposition. They didn't like that diverse crowd of union folks and progressive allies in the room. So once it got to, it passed the full Senate and then was very, very quickly moved over to the House, rushed through a closed House hearing. They did not want to give us the chance to pack out another public hearing, so they avoided that. Gotta love how they handle democracy. When they don't like it, they just get rid of it. So it made it to the full floor of the House this past week, and unfortunately, it was approved. It's now going to head to the governor for her signature. There were some amendments that were made. There was a good-ish amendment, a data reporting amendment. Doesn't do a whole lot, but at least collects data that Wadsworth was behind. Tim Wadsworth, he has a lot of union members in his district. Even though he's a Republican, he frequently, does have some conflict with the Business Council of Alabama because occasionally he does the right thing, and God forbid they do that. So 231 has passed. I think we as a movement will have to do some debriefing on what went wrong, where we could have been stronger in opposition. One thing that's very obvious from the bits of the debate that I listened to is that we do not have union champions in the legislature. even those who were opposed to this bill largely didn't understand what the hell they were talking about. And so next week, we hope to have some clips from the debate. We're going to dive into it a little bit more. It was on the floor of the House for almost an hour, so there was a lot to dig into there, and we just didn't have time to get all the good clips together this weekend. But we'll definitely do a deep dive next week, talk a little bit more about what happened and how it went down, who is really responsible for this. But that's not all that's going on.
Well, just before we move off of that, it is worth mentioning that the House passed it with amendments, and the Senate did not concur with the amendments. So it's going to conference committee now. So, Adam, does that mean that that they're going to have to come up with a compromise between the two houses, and both of the houses are going to have to pass it again, or what does that look like? Or can the conference committee itself say that, okay, now both chambers agree on this compromise, or what?
My understanding is that the conference committee can work that out,
okay.
Especially given some of the amendments were not super impactful, like the data reporting amendment, that's a change, but it's not a major change. It probably can be worked out in conference committee. I'm not sure. There was an amendment to make it effective immediately, right? Instead of later in the year. That seems interesting. And of course, we witnessed the hearing or the amendment added in the Senate side that would apply this to local governments as well. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think it's still not too late to call your legislator and let them know how you feel about it, because even if this does ultimately get worked out in conference committee and get signed by the governor, I think it's important that they know that this is not popular among their constituency. Their constituency is working class. We as working people, we are the majority in every district. It doesn't matter how wealthy or how poor, working folks are the majority. And this is a bill that clearly is an attack on working folks and our ability to organize. So, yeah, we'll do some more debriefing on that next week. I did want to just wrap up with a couple of final things on the legislature. There are only 5 days left. That is good news. Who knows what will happen in these final 5 days. The budgets, passing both budgets is obviously the big thing. It's actually the only two things they are required to do each year is pass a general fund budget and pass an education trust fund budget. Those are still in the works. Gambling is also the big issue that is out there right now that has not been settled. There's disagreements between each chamber. The House and the Senate have their own versions. There's a big gambling package that would include sports gaming, multiple casino locations, a lottery, and a compact with the Porch Creek Indians. But it's hard to tell if that really has the votes yet to actually go through this year. There is a rumor that Governor Ivey will call a special session if gambling does not get approved. So keep your eyes peeled for that. On the budget fight and the gambling fight, obviously a lot of people are still looking for a lot of funding. I know that the AEA, Alabama Education Association, is pushing for relief for education retirees and have kind of hung their hat on gambling as probably the revenue source for that. Alabama Rise and other advocates continue to push for summer EBT, which as of yet has not been included in either budget. This is an opportunity to feed hungry children throughout the summer who will not have access to, school lunches and school breakfasts. So it's a very low investment program because of the federal dollars that come with it. But so we'll see what can happen here in these last few days. Public transit had a bill that unfortunately failed in committee this past week. So, we'll see what happens there, but, public transit not looking good for the remaining 5 days. And on Medicaid expansion, there was a really powerful hearing this past week, a joint health committee meeting where Republican lawmakers from Arkansas and North Carolina spoke to Alabama legislators about some of their, quasi-Medicaid expansion programs. So that's some progress. unfortunately, in Mississippi, right next door, Medicaid expansion seems to be falling apart. And so up in the air there. There's still some good criminal justice bills that are out there. We will see if they get through. There's also a bad immigration bill from Ernie Yarborough that would try to get local police to be de facto ICE agents. And Senator Arthur Orr still has an anti-protest bill floating around out there. It's SB 57, which is clearly in reaction to the Decatur protest of their mayor. I believe that's all the big things that really came to mind. There's still hope for a couple of good bills. Paid leave for state employees as well as education employees. That's still on the floor. It's still being discussed. It's being whittled down week by week, it sounds like, unfortunately. I mean, isn't it wild that we have, 70-80% female teachers and we don't even have maternity leave? But my understanding is they were trying to take paternity leave out of the bill. These are family values,
family
folks.
Values, right.
Family values.
But if you're a man, you don't deserve to stay home with your child.
Right.
Right. I mean, and that's one of the problems with, the patriarchy, right? I mean, it's like there's a lot of BS that it does to us too. I mean, the idea that, that it's not macho to want to take time and be with your children is so, backwards and retrograde and obviously harmful to men as well as women. That's just a bailiwick of mine. I can't. It's BS.
It is, yeah. I totally agree. I think that's disgraceful. State employees, public educators, all workers deserve paid parental leave. I mean, it's 2024, y'all. It's a long past time that we accomplished that. So that's my legislative update. I really strongly encourage you, if you haven't spoken to your legislator in a while, call them, email them. Bug the hell out of them these last 5 days of the legislative session. Make sure that you let them know how you feel. As always, I'll plug Alabama Rise. There's some easy action alerts to complete there if you want to advocate around summer EBT, for example, or other issues. But do let them know how you feel. My legislators have been very unresponsive to me this session, and I will certainly be letting them know that. Once the session is over, because I will not give up. I will keep requesting a meeting. And when they meet with me, I will let them know how unresponsive they've been, because I've been keeping receipts. And I encourage you to do the same.
And if you live in my state Senate district and your state senator is Sam Gavan, it would be worth saying thank you for not voting in favor of SB 231. I think he was the only Republican to not vote in favor. He didn't oppose it. He voted present or he voted present, I think. But still, abstaining from that vote and not being in support of it. I mean, that's not nothing as a Republican from a very pro-business part of the state. So
right.
I'm gonna let him know that I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it's always a good approach when you're dealing with legislators to, praise them when they do the right thing and to scold them when they don't, regardless of what party they're in, right? And even if, you disagree on 9 out of 10 issues, if on that one issue they did the right thing, let them know that you saw that and you appreciated that, because who knows, maybe that one issue becomes 2 next year. Right. I know that's not fun. I know it's not it's not great. It's not great, the dynamics we have in our legislature and who we have to work with. It would be great if we elected better people every 4 years. But that's a separate conversation from what are we dealing with right now. How can we try to stop bad bills and pass good bills? Yeah. And that takes advocacy, and it takes grassroots advocacy, and people really, lighting up the phones and sending emails and doing that kind of thing. It makes a difference. So I appreciate all of you who have fought hard against 231 with us. We as a movement recognize who was with us and who wasn't, and who was present and who was appreciating the importance of it and who was really doing stuff about that. So thank you.
We've got Kristen from the Evergreen Education Association on the line, but we also have a caller. Want to give the caller just a couple of minutes really quick before we get to Kristen, because we want to spend some time with Kristen.
Sure.
So we've got a caller on the line from a 256 area code. You're going to have to make it quick because we do have a guest hanging on as well. So 256 area code, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Mel.
Mel.
Yes.
Mel, appreciate you listening. Appreciate you calling in. Mel's a retired paper worker, member of the United Steelworkers, big longtime listener, big union guy. Appreciate his support. So, Mel, what's on your mind?
I posted a question about House Bill 231. But first, good show today. Congratulate the brother and sister, one from the brother from Mercedes, sister from Hyundai. I wish them all the luck in the world. And moving forward, I noticed she was very impressed with labor notes. And those two folks are just beginning a journey. They're going to meet the finest people in labor that they will ever be associated with. But if I could, and I'll keep it short, I'll read the email that I received about House Bill 231, and I hope all is not lost with House Bill 231. And if I could, is it okay if I read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, this I won't say the names, but it came out of Alabama AFL-CIO. Just wanted to update everyone on SB 231. It was passed out of the House Tuesday, but HSD 3 amendments attached. I don't know what the amendments are. I think Adam went over some of them, but so it had to go back to the Senate, and I don't know if this is credit, but if you want to give credit, Senator Reid went to the mic and said to the Senate, did not concur, and was sent to conference. There's only 5 days left in the session. If you have any questions, please let me know. But,
so that sounds a little more optimistic that maybe we can run out the clock still. So
if we can, you know how slow the legislature can be and the Senate can be. But you know yourself, I mean, if they've got an issue, they can press things through like they did with the minimum wage in Birmingham. So,
right.
But no, I just wanted to read you that email, and it does. I think it does give a little bit more hope, to that to face down House Bill 231. I mean, I don't really get it. I don't because. I think moving forward, and I do hope that Mercedes, I think they're going to follow suit with Volkswagen and Chattanooga. But I won't keep you all, guys. But good show today, and I just wanted to read that email that I had received, and it came from AFL-CIO, so without attaching any names to it.
Yeah, appreciate that,
right.
brother.
Appreciate it, Mel. Thank you. Thanks for the call.
Absolutely, man. Take care.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Good day.
All right. If y'all want to get where Mel was, 844-899-TVLR is the phone number, 844-899-8857. We have now in the Zoom Kristen Edmiston. She is a member of the Evergreen Education Association. She did a workshop at Labor Notes on democracy in contract campaigns. Kristen, welcome to the program. Thanks for taking the time.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you waking up early over there in Washington. It's 9:20 where you're at, so appreciate you waking up and being with us at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. I don't know what time you normally wake up on Saturdays, but I know that...
A little earlier than that.
I know that some people like to sleep in on a Saturday, so I didn't want to assume. So I appreciate it. So democracy in contract campaigns, that's something that sounds good. Why should unions make a concerted effort to incorporate democracy in contract campaigns? Why should we care about that?
Well, I think in general, like not just within a contract campaign, but just within a union, democracy is essential for like a sustainable and functioning union, and to like prevent from working in this service model, to get more people involved. For a union that wants to like make real change for workers and for the world, it takes everybody. So like getting people involved throughout the entire process, including in campaigns. I think like some unions, including ours, sometimes in the past has kind of like laid low until it was bargaining time, and then we have to, especially as an organizer, like kind of reorganize everyone and get them all fired up for a contract campaign, where if we can just like keep that stuff flowing throughout, all of the participation and solidarity throughout, it's like so much more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree with that. I've seen what you're talking about as well. Yeah, it's like you have to build back up that momentum rather than keeping it flowing.
Yeah.
And so have you seen the evidence of democracy in contract campaigns being a boon yourself in your own union's work?
Yeah, we're working on it right now. So throughout our campaign, to talk a little bit about our campaign, we went on strike in the fall for 7 days. And we had also been on strike in 2017. And that strike was a lot easier to rally folks around because there was some tangible like money on the table, and working on raises and stuff like that. And that's much easier because it's more obvious to folks, and like they can really feel it. This contract campaign was a little bit harder because we weren't really talking about a lot of money. What we were wanting was support for like our special education educators and students, a lot of supports at the elementary level. And so for like high school staff to get those members in solidarity with everybody, that like when maybe it wasn't so tangible what like high school staff were going to get out of this contract, that like building up to that took a lot of work and organizing, and really just like educating folks and creating a sense of solidarity around it. And that, we sustained through the campaign, and we are continuing to sustain it now. And I think that's super important moving forward. We're really trying to emphasize, I think, like for a democratic union, we want it to be member led, right? But also for it to be member led in a democratic way, folks need to be like educated and informed. So we're really working on continuing. We built up with education just as far as like organizing in general, actions, what a structure test is, stuff like that. So building up that knowledge and then continuing that, like pushing on it a little bit more so all of our members feel empowered to like find issues within their buildings that they can come up with action around, that they're not waiting for like our president to call for some kind of action, like members feeling empowered to do things like that. And I think the solidarity built within our organizing up to the strike, and then the education and conversations continuing out of it have really helped with that. And we're seeing a lot of like actions pop up in buildings, like after the campaign or talks of them. So I think that's been really beneficial to our work.
Great. And so what are some of the, in the workshop, presumably a lot primarily focused on, kind of nuts and bolts. How do you do this if you're on the bargaining team in your union? What were some of the strategies that you gave folks in the workshop for
incorporating democracy into the contract campaign process?
So we talked. So first of all, I am a member organizer. So I wasn't on the bargaining team. I was the like bargaining support lead and the strike lead, co-lead with my coworker Sean Gunder, who is amazing to work with. And so we just went through the process of our campaign and talked about, like, first of all, that it wasn't like just when we opened the contract that we started. I mean, really, so, we were speaking at a labor notes panel, and we had started this conversation 2 years prior at labor notes. Actually, we would go to the workshops during the day and then get into someone's hotel room at night and start charting stuff out. And so just talking on the panel about that process building up to it. So like forming CAT teams, the contract action teams, so that we had, and we really wanted it to be not just like a one-way place of information. It was like a two-way information and like conversation and communication going. That was important to us. So we did structure tests with that structure itself, with the CAT structure, by like asking them to get information for us and, fill out a form, just like t-shirt size. Do you have a red shirt? All of that stuff, building up like information that we needed to know, but just testing that structure. And then we had our CAT team perform structure tests for our membership, like wearing red shirts and stuff like that. But again, like, I want to reiterate, like, it was super important to me, I think probably as an educator, but also as an organizer, that folks like understood the purpose of structure tests and of something like wearing a red shirt and the message that sends. If we all participate, or if none of us participate, like, this can be really great for us, but it can also, it can show our power, and it can also show that we are not powerful and not organized. So helping folks to understand that was the purpose of it. It wasn't just like fun red shirt day, So I think that's super important. And again, like, the more folks understand what's going on, the more democratic it can be, because the more they are like fully engaged and have a sense of ownership in their union and understand that like their choice impacts everything, like the stuff that they do really does make an impact, and it's important to the whole group. So talking about like that organization, a little bit more of specifics of a lot of the training that we did at our rep council meetings was from Secrets of a Successful Organizer, from those workshops we have been to, and from the book itself. And we've been hosting a little book group on the book for our reps. So a lot of education leading up to it. Getting the community involved was essential. And so that was something that we talked about in the panel. That was a lot, like, we got a lot of response and some questions about that. We did leading up to the strike, we started communication with the community and parents that wanted to be engaged, and would just send as many updates as we could. We started rallying at the school board meetings. But then during the strike, I would say one of our strongest organizing moves, and I like, if you have a way to do this again was essential for us. But one of the days, like, we had talked about it as an idea, and then there was just a moment about mid-strike that we were like, okay, it has to happen tomorrow. So we had every building, and again, because we had some structures in place, this was pretty easy to get, but we had every building give us at least 2 names of parents that they knew were supportive. And we compiled that list. We got on the phone with our WEA staff that was sent in that night, and we just made phone calls, and we said, can you be at a meeting we had it at a school in a neighboring district. Can you be at this elementary school tomorrow night for a meeting? We got them all there that night. And like, it was huge, to the point, it was very exciting, but it to the point where we had to say, like, no more phone calls. This is getting too big. Like, we actually, parents were saying, like, you better have a big space because I'm bringing all my friends. So it's like super excited to have that much support. And then also we were like, oh, this got too big too quick. So we had to stop making phone calls at some point. But we got them there in a room, and we just basically gave a few organizing basics, again, just kind of like educated them. We explained like where we were at in the process, what we wanted in general. We do have closed bargaining, so we didn't even have specifics to share, but we wouldn't have shared those necessarily, because we did want it to be, again, like just like we want things to be member led, we wanted this to be community led. So we just kind of explained like, here are some basics, here are some basic like areas of organizing, like maybe you do social media stuff, maybe you're interested in school board stuff, whatever it is. We just wanted to provide this space for you to organize if you would like. So here's your opportunity to do that. And like we had a member at each table just to answer questions if community members had questions about anything, about our job, or whatever it was, about anything that we were asking for about the process. And then from there they took off. They had like a huge Facebook group built. By the next day they had a rally at the district office on Friday that was just like incredible, like banging on the doors, like to the point where they weren't allowed in to the district office, which is also like great for optics for us.
Right.
And like actually that community group has continued even after this, which is like we're so proud of. Like we've been meeting with them regularly. They've showed up to every school board meeting. So we've had a lot more participation in our school board meetings. And like my hot take is that it led to, our local and the community together sort of worked on a vote of no confidence for our leadership. And our superintendent just announced his retirement last week. So my hot take is that like that organizing led to our superintendent's retiring probably earlier than he planned to. So that was huge for us. And that was a big topic in the panel. I've been talking a lot. Do y'all have any questions?
That was great. Like I love the community backup. And that really reminds me of some of my education organizing as well. Like some of those parents and grandparents and just community members who cared, right? And maybe they had more time for whatever reason, but like who could show up at those school board meetings or write those school board members, had relationships with school board members perhaps. So yeah, I think that's really, really cool. And it is such an important piece. And I mean, it's maybe more obvious to folks when it comes to public education organizing, but don't think it's not relevant. Like whatever industry you're in, right? You are part of the community and you are attached to the community. And your livelihood definitely impacts everyone else's livelihood. So I just wanted to echo that. I think that's really cool.
What were some of the questions that folks were asking in the workshop? Were there any that stuck out to you as interesting questions or as good jumping off points for some practical advice?
Yeah. So one of the things that I, as an organizer, heard from members on picket lines and stuff, was they didn't have the vocabulary for it, but I really feel like there's a need for open bargaining in our union this next time around, because folks were just like so just feeling out of the loop. And there's a point where it's like, well, what are we walking for, which is natural. And right. Closed bargaining is what we had agreed to. So, no problem there. But I do think we need to shift to that, especially to be more democratic, right? So there's two-way communication. It's member led, right now, like we elect our leaders and we have surveys, but I think there's more to democracy than that. And that folks have a voice all the way through, not just like the first little part and then it's, and then a group of 6 people take it away, not to remove it, but like, we'll take it from here kind of thing. Right. For 1,600 people. Like, it's just not possible for 6 people to represent everyone. So I talked about that when we were asked like what our challenges were. I think that that's a big challenge at this point and something I want to push for. And that was really, again, a hot topic of conversation we had a lot of time that was just like questions from the audience. And a lot of people are more interested in shifting to an open bargain like we're trying to do. And so a lot of questions just about like, I would like to do that too. How are you doing that? How are you trying to shift there? And, the answer is like, we're trying to figure it out too, especially if like our current leadership and our current staff that's with us from WEA, like that's what they know and that's what they're trained in and that's what they've always done. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like to shift to something new, take some learning, take some people to be like, willing to be out of their comfort zone and stuff like that. So that's where we're at, is trying to like get to that space where people feel comfortable taking that leap and educating members on what it even is. Like sometimes people hear open bargaining and like it absolutely can be everyone in a gym and listening, watching the whole thing, but that's not like the only thing. It doesn't have to be that open. Open can just be like bringing in groups of people to have a little bit more of a voice when it comes to language that impacts them. So that was, my answer is like, right now we're working on building some interest groups and some caucuses that we could, maybe lean on when it comes to like, hey, counselors, this language is about you and none of the 6 of us can answer this on our own. So what do you think about this? Like they're offering this or this, what would you choose, or whatever it is. Like, I think that's how we're doing it. There was a question about like someone was going into bargaining right then and they were wondering like, how can we make this open? And I was like, it might be like a little too quick to try a completely new model if you're like going into it next month or whatever. But also like just communicating with some interest groups, like that is a way to start that's, pretty harmless and not gonna cause a big ruckus and definitely be more democratic. So.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of open bargaining. I think it's really good, and I think one of the benefits is it kind of eliminates the rumor mill. Like, oh, I heard this about bargaining. I heard that they did this. I heard that they gave up this. And instead of being like not sure what's going on, like you can just go and you can just see for yourself like what's happening in bargaining and what management is saying about you. I think it's a really good. I think it's really good. And you were talking about how, yes, you vote for your representatives and all of this, and that's great, but that's not all there is to democracy. And I think that's a really big problem that we have in American society, is that we have been, beaten into us like anytime, to the extent that we even have civics classes anymore, right? To the extent that we have a civic education, all democracy is once every 4 years you go and you fill in a bubble next to a name, and that's democracy, and there you go. And we really need, particularly in unions, but in society at large, we need a shift in how we view democracy, to viewing democracy as power and participation, right? And I think that doing, injecting democracy into contract campaigns is a really good way to do that for union members, and can really be kind of a school for democracy for our members to engage more broadly in society. So I think it's really great all around.
Yeah, and I feel like.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel strongly that unions are really like, if we all can work together and organize, like we are what's gonna push the greater society into some of this stuff, because we're working together, like we are a huge group, right? So we've got a lot of power and solidarity there, and like we can also do that for our states and our country and the world. So exciting.
Yep. Was there anything else that you wanted to make sure that you touched on about democracy and contract campaigns before we let you go?
I think I would just, for anyone that's like wondering how how to make sure that their union is being democratic, I want to emphasize again, probably because I'm an educator, but like just the education piece of it, and folks understanding when they're making decisions, they understand the decision that they're making, so like that they are educated and informed, and when there's a motion on the floor, that folks understand how that motion works and what exactly they're voting for. Like that's truly democratic, not just that there was a vote taken, or when you are ratifying a contract that members actually had time to read it and ask questions. Like that is democracy, not just the fact that we voted to ratify a contract because we wanted to get back to work because we were tired of striking or whatever it is. So like really that the making sure people are educated and informed means democracy to me.
Right. Do you have any reflections on labor notes? Was this your first time going?
This is my second time going, and I just love it. I love the connections. If anyone is like considering going, please go, because I learned so much from the workshops and stuff, but also just from talking to other people in other unions. Like I would say that the first labor notes that I went to, I listened to a panel of one of the strippers unions that was organizing. They were currently on strike, and we were just hearing about some of their creative actions. And I mean, that definitely, like, I used a lot of those ideas in our organizing for our strike too. Like, of course they had to happen a little bit differently, but I mean, I'm inspired by listening to other unions because they are thinking of things that we're not thinking of. So having that opportunity is like priceless. And then it's also just cool, like, I mean, walking through the hotel lobby and just hearing conversations about organizing and problem solving and solidarity. It's just like an energy like no other. So it's such a cool place to be.
Absolutely. Evergreen Education Association, is there like a county in Washington called Evergreen, or are you at the college Evergreen?
So we are in Vancouver, Washington. There's 2 school districts. So there's Evergreen School District and Vancouver School District. So we're K through 12 districts. Yeah, there's two of them there.
All right. Kristen Edmiston, member of the Evergreen Education Association. Appreciate your time. Thank you for talking to us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Right. Thank you.
Bye.
Brandon Hill. Call in, or anybody else if you would like to call in. While we are waiting for Brandon to call in, just wanted to just mention really quickly about the tentative agreement at Daimler. Huge win there. There is actually a rally going on right now in North Carolina where many of the workers at Daimler are. I'm probably going to try to pull some clips and have Joe put them in this clip when we put it out on YouTube, because by next Saturday it'll be a week old, and so I don't know if we want to go back to it again, but really, really big news. Just some numbers here. The company reported a net profit in the last year of $4 billion, which is a full 44% increase from a year earlier. From those profits, the company could literally double the compensation for North American Daimler workers and still not raise prices and still have profits left over. So obviously there's money to go around here. And it's also worth noting that more than half of that profit was generated from sales in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So lots of, it's not, this is a German company, but now actually primarily the primary, profit maker is in North America for Daimler. They make the yellow school buses that a lot of folks are, familiar with. They're one of the primary manufacturers of that. Lots of money to go around here, and the workers were able to pull down a lot of that money. A 25% raise is what's in the tentative agreement that was announced last night on the eve of the contract expiration. A 25% raise over the term of the 4-year contract, with a 10% raise effective immediately on ratification, and another 6% over the next year, meaning by the end of the first year of this contract, workers will have received at least a 16% raise. I mean, that is huge, a 16% raise in 1 year. Most workers don't see that in their life. So it's really exciting for them. Also, an end to tiers. Daimler manufactures multiple different kinds of vehicles. They make school buses, and they also make Freightliners and, like 18-wheeler type trucks. And one of those, I can't remember which, but workers at one of those manufacturing facilities make less than the other, a full $5 an hour less. So that's a huge tier there that they got eliminated. Now workers making the buses and the trucks make the same amount of money. So that's going to be big. They also included in this tentative agreement provisions aimed at preserving jobs. In North Carolina, workers had sought more job security after the company moved some production to Mexico. So huge news for workers at Daimler in the South. 7,000 UAW represented Daimler workers in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia. So really excited for them. And, if anybody from Daimler wants to call in today or anytime here over the next couple of weeks as y'all are voting on the contract, feel free to call in. Would love to hear from you. Really excited for that win that y'all have. That's, the UAW is making moves in the South. With the Volkswagen win, there was actually some comparison to a win that the Union Army had in Chattanooga during the Civil War. Labor historian Nelson Lichtenstein, this is from Luis's article in Labor Notes about the Chattanooga victory for Volkswagen, in Volkswagen for the UAW. Nelson Lichtenstein compared tonight's win to the Union Army's victory in Chattanooga in 1863 during the U.S. Civil War, when President Abraham Lincoln declared it, quote, the gateway to the South. Taking Chattanooga, Lichtenstein said, opened the door to the capture of Atlanta, the rest of Georgia, and the Carolinas. With the UAW's win at Volkswagen, another gateway to the South has been opened. No longer will the wage and benefit standards of the million-strong auto workforce in the U.S. be set by the non-union portion of the industry. A militant and increasingly powerful UAW will set the standard. And this, with Daimler in North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee, is yet another win in the South for the UAW. So really exciting news there.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to see it. So yeah, if you are out there, give us a call. We'd love to know how things have been going in the campaign, the contract campaign, and what you think about the tentative agreement.
Yep. So we've got some more stuff. Tomorrow, April 28th, is Workers' Memorial Day. It's a day that the labor movement has set aside to memorialize workers who have died on the job. And every year, in honor of this memorial, the AFL-CIO puts out a Death on the Job report. It's just a report cataloging, deaths and injuries on the job in the United States. Some statistics, statistics on enforcement and funding of enforcement mechanisms, things like that. So, Adam, what were some of the highlights from the AFL-CIO's report this year, or lowlights, as it were?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with a little bit about the report and then talk a little bit more about Workers' Memorial Day. So this is the 33rd annual report, Death on the Job, the Toll of Neglect. This annual report serves as a national and state-by-state profile of worker safety and health, offering direction to policymakers and regulatory bodies as they strive to address the scourge of working people facing death, injury, and illness at work. Among the report's startling data are the disproportionate rates of Latino and Black workers at risk of dying on the job. Black workers are facing the highest job fatality rates in nearly 15 years, and Latino workers continue to face the greatest risk of dying on the job compared to all other workers. The report also sheds light on the enormous cost of job injuries and illness on our society, an estimated $174 billion to $348 billion a year, and the flat-funded budget for job safety agencies to fulfill their growing duties, which do not even keep up with inflation. It also outlines key strategies to address this crisis, including a renewed commitment to regulatory oversight agencies, improved data and transparency, stronger deterrence against employer retaliation, and prioritizing standard setting and enforcement. Despite workers' hard-won safety and health rights, this report shows the fight is far from over, said AFL-CIO President Liz Shuler. Too many workers face retaliation for reporting unsafe working conditions or injuries, while low penalties fail to deter employers from following the law. The alarming disparities in workplace fatalities among workers of color are unacceptable, symptomatic of a deeply ingrained racial inequity, and the need to pay increased attention to the dangerous industries that treat workers as disposable. As we honor those who have fallen this Workers' Memorial Day, we remain committed to holding corporations accountable so that all jobs are safe jobs where every worker can return home safely at the end of the day. Again, that was Liz Shuler, president of AFL-CIO. AFL-CIO Secretary-Treasurer Fred Redmond said this report exposes an urgent crisis for workers of color and reaffirms what we've long known. When we talk about justice for workers, we must prioritize racial equity. The fact that Black and Latino workers continue to die on the job at disproportionate rates demands a reckoning with the failure of employers to protect them. We must honor the lives lost on the job with action as we recommit ourselves to advancing safety, health, and equity for all workers. And just some highlights, or lowlights, rather, from this year's report covering 2022. 344 workers died each day from hazardous working conditions. 5,486 workers were killed on the job in the United States. An estimated 120,000 workers died from occupational diseases. The job fatality rate increased again to 3.7 per 100,000 workers. Workers of color die on the job at a higher rate. As mentioned, Black and Latino worker job fatality rates are disproportionate compared with all other workers and are continuing to increase. Black workers' job fatality rate was the highest it has been in nearly 15 years, 4.2 per 100,000 workers. Latino workers' job fatality rate increased again to 4.6 per 100,000 workers, meaning they continue to face the greatest risk of dying on the job than all workers, at 24% higher than the national average. The rate marked a 24% increase over the past decade. Employers reported nearly 3.5 million work-related injuries and illnesses, an increase from the previous year. And notice I said employers reported. So certainly an undercount. These sobering findings stress the urgent need for immediate action to prioritize worker safety and shed light on the escalating challenges facing workplace protections. Progress has been hindered by growing opposition from big corporations to workers' rights and protections. Extremist politicians have also unnecessarily politicized critical issues such as climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic, which has created more challenges to long-standing problems of heat and infectious disease exposure in the workplace, and the lack of funding has left our agencies scrambling to keep up. So I'll stop there to just recommend that folks check out the report. I think we will probably do a deeper dive on the report in coming episodes. As Jacob mentioned, Sunday, April 28th is Workers' Memorial Day. The administrators of OSHA and MSHA will be joining the AFL-CIO president in a national ceremony. When Workers' Memorial Day was started back in 1970, an estimated 38 U.S. workers suffered fatal on-the-job injuries each day. Today, work-related injuries in the U.S. claim about 15 people's lives a day. That is according to the Department of Labor. So, it's a day to remind folks that people lose their lives at work. People lose their limbs at work. People suffer from diseases that they received from the course of their work. And so I really appreciate the AFL-CIO putting out this report. Both AFSCME and CWA put out statements regarding Workers' Memorial Day. CWA wanted to highlight some of their members who have lost their lives over the past year in work-related deaths. And AFSCME also wanted to kind of just remind folks that, the Occupational Safety and Health Act was put into law over half a century ago, but we continue to deal with too many injuries, too many illnesses, and too many deaths on the job. And so we need a re-energized OSHA. We need stepped-up enforcement. We need more funding to OSHA and MSHA and other safety agencies. We need to recognize that public service workers are not treated equally and are not covered by OSHA standards, right? In 27 states and territories, public service workers, including thousands of AFSCME members, are not protected by federal OSHA standards. State, local, and municipal employees are not covered unless there is an OSHA state plan passed by the legislature and signed into law by the governor. We do not have that in Alabama. And in states where the laws do not protect public service workers, the union difference matters even more. So, fighting for safety on the job has been one of the historic missions of our labor movement. It has motivated millions of folks to get involved in this movement throughout the last 100, 150 years. It's a continuous priority, the safety of our members, and just want to echo those comments earlier from Liz Schuler that everyone should be able to return home from work safely, and the fact that too many don't is a problem we must address as a movement, as a society. We have to put pressure on our government, and we have to put pressure on these employers. So we'll talk more about it, but in future weeks about this report. But I did want to highlight that in honor of Workers' Memorial Day coming up tomorrow. I will be speaking to a class of 11th and 12th graders on Monday, and we'll touch on that as well. It's just a really important date to honor those who have sacrificed so much just because they're going to work. They're just trying to feed their family and take care of themselves and participate in society. So Workers' Memorial Day, Sunday, April 28th. Talk to your friends and neighbors about it. It's a good opportunity. It's a good conversation starter, right? If you're looking for a way to have a conversation with folks about workplace issues, about union issues, here's your opening. And that's all I got, Jacob.
All right, there you go. Really, that's one of the things that the AFL-CIO does do well. They put out some good reports. They put out they do some good research. So appreciate them, and going to have to. Hopefully, we'll be able to get one of them on to somebody from the AFL on to talk about that report, because there's some good stuff there that we can dig into. I did notice that Alabama's numbers got significantly better from the last year. We are no longer in the top 10 most deadly states to work in if you're a worker. I think number 21 now.
Wow.
Yeah, not sure what the difference was over the last year, or if this year, or if 2022, because the numbers kind of lag, right? So 2021, Alabama was in the top 10 most deadly states. 2022, number 21. So I'm not sure if 21 was an anomaly, or if 22 is an anomaly, or if there's some trend that is kind of going on in the background,
right?
That is kind of difficult to decipher. But part of that could be that in 21 the labor market was we were just starting to feel the effects of a tight labor market, and maybe in 22 with a more mature tight labor market, some of the companies were trying to clean up their act, as it were, and so potentially that could be part of it.
Yeah, it's hard to say, because there certainly hasn't been any ramped up enforcement effort
right.
that we're aware of. There certainly hasn't been any legislation to address worker safety something that we have brought up to legislators before, many of whom know very little about this and are unaware that there are, workers all over the state who aren't even covered by OSHA, which, what good is that doing anyway when there's very few inspectors and very few routes to enforce OSHA, particularly if you're not in a union, right? So it's an issue that really, I think, still resonates deeply with a lot of folks, because if this has happened to you or your father, your husband, your wife, your daughter, you know it and you remember it. So it's an issue that I think the labor movement has to be really vocal about.
Yeah. We got a caller on the line from a 352 area code. Caller from a 352 area code. What is your name and where are you calling from? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, 352. You're on the air.
Hey, how you guys doing? This is Brandon from Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area.
Brandon, good to have you call in. Appreciate you calling in. You said in the YouTube chat that you were going to be talking about the Amazon union's affiliation vote with the Teamsters. That happened a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago today, I think, actually. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, so well, that's actually an ongoing thing. It started 2 weeks ago, and then we had up until today to get the votes in. So basically, today is the last day of voting, and then we're going to tally it up today at the union barbecue that we're going to be doing to celebrate that.
Okay, great. And so I'm assuming that you're expecting pretty heavy vote in favor of affiliating with the Teamsters. Is that right?
Well, my experience, the feedback I've gotten from a lot of the folks on the shop floor is that if they're pro-union, then they're definitely pro-Teamsters. And I'd say the vote is probably going to be pretty strong. I know I voted for that. So,
right.
But I feel like, I just wish more folks were coming out and voting all together. But, I feel pretty confident the vote will be successful and we'll be affiliating with the Teamsters here.
So what was some of the, what prompted that? What prompted the vote to affiliate with the Teamsters?
Oh, well, I don't know, the exact, decisions that were made. Like, I'm not on the coordinating committee here at the Amazon KCBG campaign. ALU KCBG is the name of our union. And so basically, a little bit of it was, I think, what was going on with other campaigns. So I know you folks are familiar with what's going on with JFK 8 in New York. And basically, from what I understand, we originally affiliated with those folks. We were getting a lot of support from them. They were coming out, flying out. Chris Malls came out to support our rally, with our launch rally. We were basically running with their structure and their constitution. And then at some point, the decision was made that we kind of wanted to go more independent. We felt like we had grown into sort of our own thing. And I guess some things were going on with the JFK 8 union in New York. And we just decided that once they get their stuff settled, that we'll basically do our own thing, and then maybe we'll come to reaffiliate at some later point. But I think a big feeling of just the folks on the floor here is that Teamsters is a brand that people are more familiar with than Amazon Labor Union. And I feel like, and with considering the DHL victory right across the street that we just had, and the ongoing campaign that's going on there, people just feel like, this is probably the way to go.
I figured that. I think maybe I read but it seems pretty intuitive that, oh, you've got, some folks across the street doing literally the same thing for another company that just unionized and just won a good contract with the Teamsters. So, why should we not be a part of that, of the same thing over there? That I think that makes a lot of sense, to me anyway.
Yeah. I think a lot of folks are really looking at this, long term. But then also, a lot of people I talk to are just basically like, well, can they support us if we go on strike? Basically, can they guarantee, that we get some kind of support? And the answer was, no, basically, right? And when it comes down to it, there's a lot of belief that the Teamsters will have our back when it comes to something like that, and not just at the folks who go on strike at our particular workplace, but we'll have support from right across the street. We'll have support from the pilot, and that sort of thing. So I'm not exactly sure how familiar you guys are. I know you guys have interviewed folks with our campaign, and I've called in a few times. But did you guys talk to anybody at Labor Notes? Because I know we had a delegation that went there.
It's funny. We didn't actually talk to anybody from the Kentucky Amazon campaign at Labor Notes. It's funny that you mentioned that because it seems like we would have, but no, I didn't run into anybody.
Not that I can remember.
Not that I remember.
I mean,
anyway.
there was a lot of people we talked to, but no, I don't. I figured y'all would have a good delegation there, but hopefully they learned a lot and had some great networking and met some new comrades.
Yeah, I think they did. I think people had some really good feedback, and we haven't really got a full report back, but I'm waiting to hear that because I'm excited to hear about all the stuff that's going on there. And if I could, I just wanted to also just say thank you to all the folks who've been supporting our campaign locally. I don't know how many of those folks will, listen to your show. But I just wanted to, shout out there that we have been getting a lot of community support, just from regular folks in my neighborhood. We have signs that are up to show solidarity with the workers at Amazon. And people just sometimes, stop by and knock on the door and say that, they ask about the sign. And I've seen people in, neighborhoods around the city who have that sign up. And there's just a lot of local support for that. And one of the places we've gotten a lot of support from is a place called the Cincinnati Interfaith Workers Center. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but they're a great place, a great resource downtown in a place called the Peasley Center. And they've been real supportive of our campaign, and they do a lot of work with migrant workers. And they do something every year on May Day. They do a May Day brunch celebration. It's basically a big fundraiser that they got to do. But they try to do this every year on May Day. And they have an event where they recognize local working class leadership, from the labor movement and from the community. And they recognize folks who passed. And they're doing that this year on May 1st. And I just want to give a shout out to them because they've been really, really supportive of us.
That's really cool. I appreciate you sharing that. And I think, those sorts of institutions can be really valuable to campaigns, to get that community ally support and to just have some friends in the neighborhood, right? And who are connected and are hearing different things than what you're hearing and can really connect you with new people. I think that's great. I love when I hear of a worker center somewhere. We unfortunately don't really have many of those in Alabama, but especially when you have the interfaith cooperation and folks, building those community faith labor coalitions. That's huge. So I love it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I feel real lucky to have that in my city here. And I guess it's just a real festive weekend here because also we're doing this union barbecue here. It's more in Crescent Springs, Kentucky, which is right over the river here. But we're doing that to celebrate the end of our affiliation vote with the Teamsters today. So lots of stuff going on this weekend. I'm sorry, May Day's next weekend. Excuse me.
Right. Well, May Day's on Wednesday. Our labor council's having our labor council's having a happy hour, and I think actually Old Heidelberg was just booked. So if you're in the area and you want to plan to go to Old Heidelberg for for a May Day happy hour with the Labor Council, mark it on your calendar, 5 o'clock Wednesday after work. So, or
Right on.
after work, or more appropriately, if you don't work on May Day, then head over to Old Heidelberg after you finish whatever you're doing during the day that's not work. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Brandon, I appreciate it, man, and I'm glad to hear the good energy going on this week. Hopefully, it keeps up and just channels more positive momentum into the campaign.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the time.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thanks for calling
absolutely.
in.
Call us anytime, Brandon.
Yeah, you guys have a good one.
You too, brother.
You too. So, Adam, one of the things that was mentioned, actually, we got a couple of op-eds. We get, there's so many of these anti-UAW op-eds coming out in the Alabama press from the business class and from politicians. And one of them talks about right to work. And that's a phrase that's thrown around a lot, especially as, unions are gaining momentum and people are pushing back against it. Alabama being a right to work state is something that's said a lot. And it's said a lot, I feel, without understanding of what it is. So can you just, I think it's worth every now and then just kind of stepping back and doing a couple of these educational segments a little bit and just reminding people what is actually right to work.
Yeah. So right to work is a misleading term. It does not actually have anything to do with a person's right to a job. Not really. Right to work refers to state laws that prohibit unions from receiving quote unquote fair share fees from workers who are represented by the union and covered by a collective bargaining agreement. So in a fair share state, a non-right to work state, the union and the employer can negotiate rules in their contract that require all the workers covered by said contract to either pay union dues as a member or pay a fair share fee if they're not a member. But in right to work states, these fair share fees are illegal. Right? So in a right to work state, the big government comes in between the employee and the employer and says, nope, you can't put this in your contract. You cannot talk about this. I know that's not the way it's normally framed, right? Because, and I'll mention in a second here about the right to work states and who they are, but it's not normally framed that way, but it is ultimately a form of government intervention into the private negotiations between the unions and the employers. So in all states, unions are required by law to represent all workers covered by a collective bargaining agreement, regardless of whether the worker is a member of the union. So in right-to-work states, unions still have to provide representation to folks, but workers are not required to pay a fair share fee for this representation. That creates a free rider problem that weakens unions, right? You can get some of the benefits of the contract. You can even request representation. You can, file a grievance, all that stuff without actually paying any dues, without even paying a fee, just being a free rider, taking a free ride on the union's hard work. So that is a phenomenon that we deal with in states like Alabama. Essentially, right-to-work statutes prohibit employers and unions from requiring union membership in order for employees to get and keep a job. Alabama has long had this type of statute in its state code for over half a century. And they declared that it's, quote, the public policy of Alabama that the right of persons to work shall not be denied or abridged on account of membership or non-membership in any labor union or labor organization. Any agreement, combination between employer and labor union or organization denying non-members' right to work is prohibited. Labor organizations cannot require membership, abstention, or payment of union dues. States with right-to-work laws generally have lower rates of unionization. Makes sense. In fact, the 17 states with the lowest union density rates all have right-to-work laws. And these low union density states typically have lower wages and less robust public benefits than fair share states. That's not just Adam making that up. That's our own United States Department of Labor says that. Now, right to work is often confused with at-will employment, right? People will sometimes say to me, oh, well, they got fired. It is a right-to-work state.
Mm-hmm.
The right-to-work law has nothing to do with being fired. What you're referring to is at-will employment, which is the default in most states, certainly in Alabama as well. At-will employment means an employee can be fired for any legal reason, and they do not have to be given a reason or a warning. And I say any legal reason. It's still technically against the law to fire people for retaliation or for discriminatory reasons. But without a union, without a contract, good luck proving that to some right-wing judge in Alabama. Yeah. So unions fight for due process, which means you can only be fired for just cause. The employer would have to prove that you have done something wrong that justifies your termination, right? Typically after a short probationary period. Unions fight for due process protections in the contract. That is at-will employment that is being addressed, not right to work. So there is a difference. Right to work is about interfering with employers and unions negotiations and preventing these fair share agreements, allowing for situations where you can take a free ride on the union's hard work and representation and not actually have to pay anything. And they do this intentionally to weaken unions so that they can have lower membership and have to pay to represent people who don't pay them. And it's also just a philosophical thing that they can point to this law. And in Alabama, it's actually enshrined in our state constitution as of 2016. They can point to this and say, see, employers, we are anti-union. We oppose the unions. Come down here and do business here, where you can bust the unions to your heart's content. But that's right to work. That's at-will employment. There is a distinction. Right to work is not what it sounds like. It sounds like maybe it's a federal job guarantee, which would be pretty damn sweet if we had one. Right. I personally believe we all do have the right to work, which is why I support policies like federal job guarantees that would guarantee everyone actually has a right to work. But that's not what this means. It's anti-union bullshit.
Yep, that's that's about it. This Arnold Mooney was in 1819 News and I think other places talking about bashing the UAW, and one of the things that he mentioned was right to work. And apparently he was the sponsor of the constitutional amendment in 2016 or 2017 that put right to work in the state constitution. Really, really kind of frustrating stuff there.
Well, here's what Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. said about it.
Oh, yeah.
Right to work provides no rights and no work. Its purpose is to destroy labor unions and the freedom of collective bargaining. Now, that's what Dr. King said about it.
Right.
But I guess you can trust Mr. Mooney.
Yeah, right. Well, speaking of Mr. Mooney, let's just respond to some of these anti-union op-eds that came out last week. Last week we had 2, maybe more, but I saw 2. And one of them was from the Speaker of the House, Nathaniel Ledbetter, the Speaker of the State House in Alabama, Nathaniel Ledbetter, calling the UAW a leech, which I think is hilarious coming from a politician. Right. Coming from a politician in service of, profit-making enterprises from other countries coming to exploit Alabama workers and who, literally make money by not giving us the full value that we create. Literally, logistically, literally, descriptively leeching off of Alabama workers. That is how profits are created. So I think that's pretty funny. Lambasting the UAW's business model. There's the kind of sneaky attempt to try
it's funny how businesses only need negative connotations when associated with unions, right? Yeah. Boss is only a bad term if it's union boss, but, and so that weaponize the workforce, drive up cost, destroy quality, and send the state's auto industry up in smoke.
Yeah.
Now,
that would be super in the self-interest of the workers in.
Yeah,
Alabama.
yeah.
That would be
I'm
great.
sure they're plotting in Detroit. How can we shut down all these factories we're trying to organize?
Right.
Because I'm sure we'll just be raking in the dues dollars then, won't
Yeah.
we?
I mean, yeah, it just doesn't make sense, the idea that...
Weaponize the workforce. You mean educate them?
Right.
You mean organize them? You mean workers start asking questions? Suddenly that's weaponized?
Right. And that's, I mean, that's the whole thing. And, it's funny, the idea that standing up for yourself and asking for more money is, that's going to send jobs away. I mean, if you follow that to its conclusion, what they should advocate is for workers to, ask the companies to work for less than they're offering, because then that will really help the companies stay here. It's not anything about, the values being created. I mean, just to be serious, the thing is that the value is being created. The only question is, where is it going to go? Is it going to line some schmuck's pocket in New York or some, big city investor? Or is it going to, like Jacob Ryan said, the Mercedes worker in Tuscaloosa, is it going to go into pockets like his, where he's going to be able to spend that money in his local community and actually, lift the tide, rise the tide for the rest of his community, spend money at his local restaurants and help those, small business owners. We love small business owners, right? I mean, it's just so frustrating, the way that they talk about and the indignation that they have with workers daring to stand up for themselves and daring to have a say in how their lives are run and what happens in the place where they spend the majority of their waking lives. It's just, it's so elitist and, oligarchical, tyrannical, and yeah, absolutely. Workers should not listen to it.
And, they destroy quality.
Right.
They destroy quality. How?
Right.
Where? Where does the union ever advocate for less quality in products? I mean, Tesla, their products are pretty jacked up right now, not because of a union.
Right. Yeah, and that's another thing. Tesla is also laying off 10% of its workforce, but there's no union there to put the blame on, and so nobody's talking about it.
Right, absolutely, right. I mean, and, they've sucked all the blood out of cities like Detroit. They have southern states like Alabama in their crosshairs, he says. Right. All the blood out of cities like Detroit, really. I mean, arguably the UAW is the reason for any success Detroit has ever had. Mm-hmm. He, of course, talks about the multiple generations of UAW leaders have a proven history of stealing from members. I think it's pretty obvious that things have changed in the UAW, right. That this is a more democratic union. It's a more militant fighting union. Members now have more power through one member, one vote. And so those issues are not irrelevant, but it is kind of ironic a politician complaining about this, right? Yeah. Last I checked, the Alabama legislature is pretty intent on picking our pockets as right. working people. And then, finally to say the UAW used a strategy known as card check to unionize a Volkswagen facility in Chattanooga, Tennessee. That is a lie. Yeah. That is just like flat out a lie. This is right. the UAW's preferred method because it forces employees to go on the record about whether or not they want to unionize. You sign cards at every campaign. Mm-hmm. That's not the same as card check.
You have to sign cards to even have an election. I mean, that's the absurdity of union elections in this country. It's as if it's as if, if we were putting this in the political context and, I'm running for mayor. Well, you first have to have an election of, are we going to have a mayor, right? And to do that, you have to sign cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to have at least 30% cards signed to file for an election. Of course, Volkswagen was unionized through an election because Volkswagen did not voluntarily recognize the union. This is asinine. It's flat out lies.
Yeah.
It's lies. And here's the thing. A lot of people who see this article aren't going to know that it's a lie.
No.
But you know that it's a lie. We know that it is a lie. So if he's lying about this, what else is he lying about? If he's willing to lie about something that is literally last week's breaking news.
Right.
Right? Like, it's not hard to find a headline where a headline itself says ballot or election or election result, right? To make it very obvious this wasn't no freaking card check. Yeah, that's really insulting. It's insulting for you as the state Speaker of the House to get on this right-wing rag and lie to the people of Alabama about what's happening in Tennessee. Do you think we're that stupid? I don't know.
Yeah.
So then you had Arnold Mooney that saying labor unions replace hope with hopelessness and jobs with joblessness and opportunities with abandonment.
Yeah.
I
mean, really, like, there's just, it's amazing that they come out with so many of these because it's all saying the same stuff. I mean, there's no, intrigue or personal stories or anything interesting because the dirty secret is it's all written by probably the same schmuck working for the Business Council of Alabama. Probably the same guy is writing all of this and just finding people to tag bylines onto it. This is not written by Nathaniel Ledbetter or Arnold Mooney. This is written by some idiot working for the Business Council of Alabama, which is an organization collectively working in the interests of business to try to convince individual employees that we shouldn't collectively organize in our own interests. I mean, it's absurd.
It is, yeah. And Mooney says Alabama will join the list of states that industrial prospects immediately cross off of their list when looking for places to locate or expand. Okay, now let's compare the economies of union states versus so-called anti-union states like Alabama. Last I checked, Alabama ranks at or near the bottom of everything. Everything good, we're down there at the bottom. Everything bad, we're up there at the top. When it comes to poverty, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to incarceration, when it comes to transportation and infrastructure, you name it. Alabama, our quality of life is not good compared to the rest of the country, compared to the rest of the developed world. Alabama is one of the worst places to be a working class person in the entire developed world. Dozens of other countries, 49 other states. Alabama is one of the worst places you could pick if you're a working class person.
Right.
And you're telling me UAW may change this dynamic? Oh, shocker. Oh, God. Well, I mean, hell, looks like we can only go up from here.
Yeah.
When you're already ranked 49th or 50th and everything. That's the thing that's wild to me is this is all to protect this status quo that is so obviously broken for so many of us. And, I guess we're supposed to be grateful for the little crumbs that we get. We're supposed to be grateful that, this is the Alabama way.
Mm-hmm.
The Alabama way is to keep us poor, to keep us uneducated, to have no infrastructure, to have no public services, where we have to beg our legislators each year to take advantage of federal money that our taxes fund. We pay federal taxes, and then we have to beg our state politicians to let us benefit from those federal taxes. That's how asinine it is down here. And so if, that model is under attack, I'm all for it. I say bring it on.
Yep, absolutely. All right. That's going to wrap it up for us today. Adam, you had a couple of closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind folks about the More Perfect Union event coming up next Saturday, 2 to 4 p.m. at Avondale Brewing. That seems like it'll be a good time. Also just want to, give a final pitch to folks to help us grow this project. We had a great time at Labor Notes. Just to be clear, we came out of our own pockets for Labor Notes, slept on the couch, try to scrimp and save. we are trying to grow this project and grow this show and get more subscribers, just get a bigger audience. We're hoping to expand to other radio stations. We're hoping to expand to more content. All of that, of course, takes more sponsors, more individual donors. Really, really appreciate all the people who chip in, whether it's the unions that run ads or just the rank and file listeners who are chipping in $5-10 a month. It really means a lot to us. We have to raise about $50,000 a year to sustain the operations that we have, and we're blessed that we've been able to do that each year. We want to grow and get it bigger and better. Initially, we were hoping to have 10,000 subscribers by May Day. It doesn't look like we're going to hit that goal, but do me a favor this week, between now and the next episode, see how many more subscribers you can get us. If you can share the YouTube channel link with some folks, see if you can get them subscribed, turn some new people onto the show. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, if you have content ideas, if you have guest ideas, folks you want us to talk to, or stuff you want us to talk about, always hit us up, send that to us, and definitely feel free to leave us voicemails throughout the week. We always enjoy when we get those. And we don't get a lot of those, so we would love to have some more of those.
Yeah.
But I think that's really all I had, Jacob. I mean, I had a great time at Labor Notes. It was great to, reconnect with old comrades, meet some new ones, learn a lot. I attended some great sessions, bargaining committee crash course, leading democratically, reviving your Central Labor Council that you and Connor Lewis and David Van Dusen were on. Lots of good sessions, lots of good people. Really enjoyed it. So looking forward to, highlighting more of those workshops in the coming weeks on our episodes, and kind of bringing some of that here, bringing some of that magic, here on the air. And then also working with folks locally to build a troublemaker school here in the North Alabama area and bring a little taste of Labor Notes down to Sweet Home Alabama. So if you're interested in working on that, let us know. If you have ideas for the show, content for the show, always hit us up. We appreciate everyone who supports us, who listens to us, who shares our stuff, and just keep that going. We appreciate it, y'all.
Yep. All right. With that, we'll see you next week.